I've been an activist for 25 years of my life. I come from a very long line of strong women. They always encourage me to use every single resource to help another young woman who's on her journey. I am sure Black women will lead this nation to a better place. We're taking control and we're shaping our stories.
All right. Happy Saturday, everybody. We were not here last week, and we're back. We got a full house. I'm just going to get right into it before we even talk about that clip. First of all, coming all the way live from Miami, Florida. You know him as the writer for Black Agenda Report. We just know him as Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings, everyone.
All right, that connection is fire. And coming from back east, he's a good man. Unfortunately, he just happens to be an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. Other than that, he's a great guy. He's Marcus from the Left Flank Bets.
What's up? And yeah, I bleed scarlet gray. I'm not gonna shy away from that.
There you go. You know, to the grave. You may know this next man from the Joe the Postman episode of That's My Mama, or you may just know him from Jacobin. He is Paul Prescott,
Mr. Randy Watson.
What's going on?
Watson.
We got Jacobin Schmiggers out here today.
That's right. Schmiggers
That boy
Saturday.
good. That boy good.
And as Pascal said, we could not do this show without this woman. He literally said, because she didn't get on right away, he goes, look, if she doesn't show up, we got to change the whole goddamn topic. I ain't talking about this shit without her. Her name is Angela Walker. She is the Green Party VP candidate. She is an organizer. She is someone I feel honored to call my friend. Please welcome Angela Walker.
Hey y'all, I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
For my dogs, man. My dogs.
I panic. That's all. Only thing is I panic and I forget that Saturday is the day all the Black people come on.
No, I got 2 dogs now. I just like 1 to 2 within like a week, and they like kids, man. They like kids, and yeah. So I apologize.
All good. So that was a commercial that Paul, did you guys talk about it on Jacobin at all?
Talk about what?
Tamika Mallory and her Cadillac commercial.
No, we didn't. No.
And somebody had the Ashe shirt with a dollar sign.
Oh. Did not talk about that.
Did you guys get I know I sent it super last minute and I apologize. The Hood Communist actually wrote a really good article on, what was the title? I put a quote of it on this.
Africans don't be a mammy for empire.
Ooh.
I started reading it late last night. I'm like, this is a lot. I got to do this first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning.
I felt bad too because I was like, oh fuck, man, I'm sending this shit hella late to Paul and Marcus. I'm sorry. We got to get on some sort of like group chat or some shit because I feel bad because by the time I send y'all this shit, it's hella late. And I sent it to Angela. Everybody I'm talking to right now is in the Eastern time zone. So I'm sorry when I send people shit like that. It's disturbing as shit hella late. I've been working on this real fucked up music project. Angela, you saw the commercial. Do I have to show it again? No, don't show it again. It hurts your soul.
I mean, I'm speaking for myself. First off, I just need to go ahead and say this and get it cleared up.
Mm-hmm.
It is such an honor to be here with all of y'all. I have been listening to this podcast, I'm blown away that I'm actually in the room with y'all. So I just need to say that.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I really am.
Don't gas Pascal's head up any more than
No,
Oh,
no,
it's
I'm-
not. I mean, the stuff y'all. I mean, y'all have been bringing absolute fire. So I just, like I told you, so I'm blown away that I'm here. And yes, that commercial, while it hurts my spirit, you know, if other people need to see it again, absolutely.
Did everybody, people respond in the chat, because I know people are coming in super last minute. Did you guys see this commercial? Because if not,
I didn't see it. So
oh shit,
Yeah.
Paul hasn't seen it. Fuck!
show it for the
What
Jacobin
better
Schmiggers.
thing to do than to
Jacobin
show it
Schmiggers gotta see.
again?
And
Right.
well, just for the audience, if you're just like,
I
if
don't
you're
really
at a
watch
standing
TV
desk
anymore. So
yeah, well, this is past TV, and like, you know, this is something that we all got to put ourselves through. But if you are at a standing desk, please sit down. Like, this is just not safe. We don't want to get sued. But
is this going to be like the Martin Luther King Super Bowl? Remember that from
commercial?
like
this
from-
I think is worse, because at least with that
Okay.
commercial, Martin Luther King had no idea what was going on, right?
Yeah, he was dead already.
Like he's been. Like,
I mean, that could make it worse, but we'll see. We'll see.
I think this is worse.
I mean,
because at least with MLK, who's actually the anniversary of his assassination is tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's more upsetting to see that commercial and be like, that's not what that speech was about at all.
Right.
The drum major instinct speech. So here you go. I'm gonna shut up.
I've been an activist for 25 years of my life. I come from a very long line of strong women. They always encourage me to use every single resource to help another young woman who's on her journey. I am sure Black women will lead this nation to a better place. We're taking control and we're shaping our stories.
You know, nothing says "oh shit" like when you use audacity of, like, Obama ruined audacity for everybody, and the audacity of Blackness, woke capitalism. Like, it's just all, you want it all crammed down your throat in a nice 30-second ad. There you go.
but also, I mean, the audacity of that Cadillac steering, though. Just saying.
The revolution will be brought to you by leather bucket seats.
Heated seats, man.
Somebody said taking control and shaping our stories. You know what? Janice Graham says something I think is pretty right on. All activists misstep from time to time. And I remember Gerald Horne once said, I'm totally paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but he was like, it's hard to raise money when you work in this activist world. And when all of a sudden cats are giving you bags of cash, a lot of people's ethics can be compromised for certain prices. So it's easy to say, not me, but I've never seen a bag as large as the bag she took. That's a big ass bag.
Yeah,
that
but
bag can feed a lot of people.
I mean, listen, man, there's a lot to dissect here.
OG Janice Graham is talking. Look, Pascal. Somebody might give you the bag, bro.
Listen, I love Janice Graham, but Janice Graham is I love all the Black people, Black women, and she's about the peace in the community and the Black United Front against racism. And I respect Janice. I love Janice, but sometimes you just got to call out the BS, man. I mean, man.
Well, I'm very curious because I mean, I hear some of y'all talk way entirely too much, and I am very, very curious as to, Angela, have you experienced maybe something like this in your past of when someone has come but said like, hey, we need to reach this community to make sure that they know that these payday loans are going to work for them, or something like that.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can honestly say I have not. Nobody was that bold with me because, the work that I did in Milwaukee, the organizing that I did, I think, people understood that if you're having those discussions, you ain't gonna be having them with me because it's gonna get ugly. I've always been pretty upfront about what my politics are, that I am unapologetically socialist. Y'all can keep that capitalist shit. It's why I left a very decent paying job with really good benefits with the nonprofit industrial complex, because it's some things you just can't do. And you're watching, it's like Rebel Diaz said, the Ford Foundation ain't gonna fund liberation. So yeah, I didn't have anyone come to me and like, yo, they knew better.
And if I could get you to maybe try to spill some tea, have you worked with any groups, any people that you were like, damn, they sold out, saw that one coming?
Trying to get you to name names.
That's fucked up, Marcus. What do they names sound like? Famey Footman?
We're only like 7 minutes into the show.
Yeah.
How can I be as diplomatic as possible with this? I won't say that there were groups that took money from particular, like, individual industries or businesses. What they did do, what they are, is funded by the Democratic Party, which is, of course, taking money from all of them. Yeah. So when you are trying to accomplish certain things, stop, possum. You're on, my dog. You're on a leash, literally, because of who's funding you. And all of these efforts that you are working for and pushing for, which is ultimately what made me really sick to my soul. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it really did. I got really depressed. All these things that you're doing, you're funneling all of this energy, all of this belief, all of this passion to the, I'm gonna just say it, Miss Pamela Davis. I know you watch this show. Leave me out. So I ain't trying to be cussing in front of your mama, Jason, but the goddamn Democratic Party, you taking all of that energy and funneling it to these do nothing ass motherfuckers. So yeah, it wasn't individual industries like, yo, this or that. It's the granddaddy of all of them that's funding the nonprofit, was funding the nonprofit that I work for.
Well, I would like to interject because our sister Angela said something very interesting here, saying that the Ford Foundation will not finance our liberation. And I think that what we have to do is put a lot of this in context. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the classic piece of 1960s Black radical literature, Black Awakening in Capitalist America by Robert Allen, which is a very, very good book. If you haven't read it, I suggest you do. But in the book, and this is in 1969, it's written, Robert Allen basically talks about the fact that the Ford Foundation was already in 1969 trying to finance Black power as a means to neutralize its effectiveness and to basically co-opt it. If you haven't read it, it's a really good book. I believe the author's name is Karen Ferguson. It's called Top Down. And it talks about how the Ford Foundation under George McBundy was actually financing Black power efforts and Black nationalist efforts up and through the 70s. So there is a history of the foundation world and American capitalism using largesse and philanthropy to neutralize Black political activity. And I mean, there is a history of philanthropy meshing with Black society to neutralize autonomy of Black people. This goes back to the development of historically Black colleges and universities in the 19th century. There's a really good book called The Education of Blacks in the South. I mean, we have to understand, E. Franklin Frazier made a very, very good statement that the role of philanthropies or nonprofits or foundations in social engineering Black America is one of the most underappreciated aspects of how the American ruling class tailors Black political expectations in a way to fit their particular needs. So as much as we may joke about this commercial, and Cadillac is obviously not as sophisticated maybe as the Ford Foundation, this is a to me, what's disappointing about this, it illustrates a level of crassness that I think is unseen before in Black political history. I mean, of all cars, you're gonna front for a Cadillac. I mean, how stereotypical. It was like, niggas love their Cadillacs. I mean, it's absurd, man.
I mean, come on, man.
And I think
what you wanted a cap for.
I think the other side of this is that certain work and certain organizations lend themselves more to this kind of co-optation. And I always think back to over the summer where you had corporations like Amazon and Walmart giving, what was it, $100 million, $200 million to so-called social justice organizations. And I think, we did a segment on this on the Jackman Show, and I brought up, notice how they would never, ever funnel that money towards, workers at Walmart who've been fighting for $15 an hour and a union. You know what I mean? Like they would never use that money to actually go towards workers' demands. It probably costs a lot less than what, they're putting up for these so-called social justice organizations. But I think, what we, have to contend with, even going back to Black Power, it was a slogan that allowed many people to fill in what it means, and that took many different forms. And some of that forms was stuff that really aligned with what the Ford Foundation wanted to do. And I think you can make a similar analogy today with Black Lives Matter. So many different people with different agendas are filling in that slogan. And we're seeing a lot of it seems very compatible with what the corporate world or what the nonprofit world would like. And I think notice, and I know I'm boring because I always bring it back to this, but notice how in the 60s, they weren't able to do that same level of co-optation with the trade union movement. And same thing today. Again, you're never going to see Walmart put that money towards getting workers a union or their demand of $15 an hour. And so I think certain work kind of lends itself to this co-optation, and we shouldn't necessarily be so surprised.
I think that's just kind of like they're always going to play the identity politics. And, something I got to say, I was like thinking about like, at what point in time, how long until, you're selling Listerine bottles with Kente cloth print on it,
that happens because in February, duh.
But that's like, honestly, I saw one that was like the pride flag, I saw like Listerine bottles, like Listerine, something. I was like, man, I haven't seen a Listerine bottle with not one Black Power fist, not one Kente cloth, so
Listerine is for the movement. Listerine,
what are we not doing on in the Black Power movement that we can't get real representation on products?
This is something that we talk about a lot, is this representation, right? And there's a new documentary out, and I want to say it's on PBS, and it chronicles the lives of Black trailblazers, right? And it's Diane Carroll. Of course, they're all in entertainment. Diane
going
Carroll.
Back to your Adam Curtis shit, are you?
No. It's just a PBS documentary. Adam Curtis actually works for the BBC, so you can eat. It's Diane Carroll, it's Nina Simone, what's Foxy Brown's, Pam Grier, who's the lady, Pascal? She used to be a jazz singer and then she became an activist and she married Max Roach.
You
know who I'm talking about, right? These young people have no idea who we're talking about. Lena Horne was in it. No, Nick, Young passed a long time ago for you. When every song you like is a throwback, you no longer young. That's how I feel. When the songs I like is on the classic rock, I'm like, classic rock.
I mean, when you went to school with Nina Simone, like Pascal, you can't. Sorry. That was my only one for today. My only one. I swear. My only one.
I'm standing in solidarity with you, Pascal. I'm 47 years old. I have like a bunch of grandkids, so I'm here with you.
Abby Lincoln, and she was actually an interesting case because she actually kind of like left Hollywood and went on to do a really interesting independent film and actually got into the activist world. Lena Horne had actually talked a lot about her relationship with Paul Robeson and Paul Robeson being a communist. It didn't shy away from that, but then the documentary made kind of a fat turn to the trails these women blazed and the activism they did was in just representation on screen, and that was it. And that's still where the Democratic Party is today, that we always talk about, right?
And I'm interested to see kind of where this goes, because Biden, of course, has made a huge deal out of like the first of everything. The cabinet, first black this, first woman that. And the thing about first is that there's only one first. And after a while, if that's all you're playing for, then the novelty is gonna wear off soon. And also, I feel like they act like there are so many people in this country who have lived, black and white, who have lived under a black political class for their whole lives. Mm-hmm. So, it's almost like he thinks he's blowing people's minds by the fact that there's some black people in the cabinet. Meanwhile, people have grown up their whole lives with their city council, mayor, state senator being black people. At some point, this novelty they're going for is going to run out, because again, there can only be one first, and after that, it's like, okay, now what?
Well, there can only be one,
right? Exactly.
I think for me, right, the whole novelty of the ethnic, racial, or sexual orientation or gender original, the first XYZ, it's a class politics, even for black people, in that the people that you will find who are most wedded to, the first black this, that, whatever comprador tool of empire, tend to be black people who are more class adjacent to be able to fulfill that job themselves. So we're usually talking about university trained, pedigreed, professional black folk,
right?
Or find a certain level of validation and vindication. That's why I wrote a piece called about class and black politics in the age of Obama, talking about how one of the reasons why people like Obama, Susan Rice, Kamala Harris are particularly important for a certain class of black people is because those people validate them and vindicate them. They validate them in terms of their presence in the overall, usually racist, white, economic or job power structure that they're in, and they vindicate them in that they can show their white contemporaries, look, we got one of us that's in control. See, our people are doing it too. So it fulfills an almost kind of emotional kind of sense of attachment that as long as this person is doing, they did a very good job of kind of talking about this pathology, is E. Franklin Frazier in The Black Bourgeoisie. That book very much talks about how the need to grasp on to symbolic validation is one of these kind of toxic predilections of the black middle class. But what I would like to say to Paul is I think working class black people aren't buying the hustle as much as they were in the past. But the question becomes, how much of black political and social infrastructure is orchestrated or curated by middle-class black people?
Well, I want to show you guys this picture that the president has tweeted out. This is a cabinet that apparently looks like America. There's
America's pretty old.
Yeah, and like, well, the thing that like the one that looks like us, or at least the two, this one that's supposed to represent me, the black male veteran. I've never been on the board of Raytheon.
Oh, this guy, right? The Secretary of Defense,
right behind Kamala.
Right. I mean, Marcus, have you tried? I mean, come on. Like, have you given them a call? Have you sent your resume? I mean,
when you got me, you got me.
You got to make your own success, Marcus.
Yeah, man. You got me slipping. You got me slipping on trying to get through.
These are very wealthy people, right? Nobody in here is broke, working class. Kamala Harris represents everything that happens with an ethnic group. They always say that she's the first of that ethnic group to represent said ethnic group in the White House. Like when the Asian violence was happening, it was like the first Asian American president. I was like, what? First black vice president, female, Nigerian. Poor Kamala Harris is everything. Who is that?
And that's when, like, I mean,
right here. Can you guys see me pointing at this or no? Oh, I have to point at it over here. Sorry. Who is the? Can you see this now? Can you see me point now?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know
who's that.
I don't know who that is.
And who is this? We are so bad with who these people are in office.
First of all, they're all wearing masks. Why
right. And the photo is kind of far away, so
that's it. Like, I only know Lord Austin because there's only one 6'8" black motherfucker that they got in that, you know. So
Is he that tall?
he's big.
Wow.
He just
huge.
took that job.
I recognize Janet Yellen, but I mean, first of all,
Janet
I think
Yellen, good call.
all of us here with testosterone need to be more quiet and let Sister Angela talk about the subject matter of the day, which is about Black girl magic for empire. And I would like to ask her do you believe that there is a cynical manipulation of Black woman aspirationalism by the liberal or the ruling class to utilize it to perpetuate, the worst of American empire?
Oh God, yes. And the article that Hood Communist shared, I have the honor of being Facebook friends with the author of that. I don't want to butcher her name. Onyesonwu, I think it's Onyesonwu Chatoyer, I think it is. She's amazing. And so just thinking about, there's absolutely this perversion. And I can, I listened to a podcast called Tea with Queen and Jay, and they went in on this. This concept of the perversion of what Black girl magic is, as long as you're serving empire, as long as you're serving capitalism, then it's all of these things. That's not what this is about. It's like that meme that used to circulate that I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't that. I mean, and that article was a breath of fresh air. That and if folks who are in the chat, folks who are watching have not read the Hood Communist piece, trust me, y'all want to, because she is exactly right. This thing about Black women, like even referenced in that cringe commercial that we just watched. Black women are going to lead and save this empire. Y'all, that's not our job. That's not our job. That is not our function. And it is just another iteration of what is referenced in the Hood Communist piece as muling. And it's insulting. And it reduces the function of Black women, again, to the same tropes that we've been reduced to the entire history of this country. We're here to serve. We're here to save. We're here to offer absolution. We're here to serve in the way that that empire demands of us, that capitalism demands of us. We're a monolith that this is what we do. And we're not folks who have a problem with what it is we are living under, or that we have some sort of deep analysis and problem with it.
Now, kind of carrying on from that, is like there is a certain passive language that happens in our society, specifically the United States, and like that ties that like what we're talking about, that Black girl magic, or that basically that expectation that certain Black women, if they are in leadership or something like that, are supposed to be this sassy ass queen that's supposed to save us, right? Now I guess like I mean my question is how do you, and especially as you coming off like running a campaign as a vice presidential candidate from the Green Party, that's something that you have to see like minute by minute, hour by hour, as you're actually engaging with people around, like, I guess my question, how do you dispel that Black girl magic myth with people, that you just carrying on with in your day-to-day life?
Be authentic. Be your authentic self. I'm not a trope. I'm not an idea. I'm not a concept. I'm a person. And that I think about that a lot, running for office. And by the way, Marcus, I listened to that episode where y'all talked about our run. And they were like, yo, I need everybody to vote for Biden. And I was like, you know what? I'm not mad at y'all. And I said, when I meet him, I'm gonna tell him that I'm not mad at you because I understood where you were.
Angela,
I don't know if I
Say that
said
a whole
those
lot of
exact
people
words.
wish.
Angela, can I say this? Can I say
Yes,
this
you
in Marcus's
did.
defense?
Yes, you did. I need
See, Marcus wanted the tea,
about it.
but he didn't expect it to come back on him.
All over his head. Angela, can I say this in defense of Marcus? I will say this in defense of Marcus. Ever since I met him and told him that I talked to you, he has only said good shit about you. I'm being totally honest. Pascal, am I lying?
No, you're being honest.
Well, so that's
pause
like
there.
Because if we're gonna talk about politics and the Green Party, that's a conversation that's separate of the great Miss Angela Walker, right? And so that's something that, hey, yeah, like this is not the topic of the day, but I hope we have something. We got another show then in the background.
He's been wanting to talk to you, Angela, for a while because he thinks you are the good thing out of the Green Party. I'm not just saying this because your ass is here. I'm saying this because when I said Angela's coming on, he was like, Angela's coming on.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, and like also too is like I don't want to do this thing because like now we're getting into the black girl magic. Like I might want to make sure that we're not doing that, right? You know, it's just like seeing exactly who you are, what you have done, the work you've done for people, and how strictly you stick to your principles, right? Because it's not necessarily about like the person as like, oh, hey, whatever, right? It's the principles that these people exude, and can they actually foster a society that is prevalent for like that's actually good to fix people's material conditions. And that's where I recognize something special in the work that you've done in your life. And so I'll shut up now.
So I have to defend him on that. On that side, I will defend him that he's your biggest political fan.
No, I was teasing. I just said, because I listened to it. I was like, when I meet this cat, I'm gonna just let you know that I heard that. It was not an indictment of anything you said or did. Trust and believe. And it's all love. I promise you.
Excuse me, but all the gentlemen with testosterone on the panel, we're already hearing comments from our chat room. Can we hear more from Angela, guys? I think that we need to really kind of learn to defer to the sister here because she's here to speak about.
Hey, what happened to Pascal Robert? Because all I hear is Trey from Boys in the Hood. Fuck, man.
No, it's fine. I did that. So I did that. And
I want to actually, because Marcus said something interesting, because he used a trope, and I don't think it's the right trope. He said that it's the Sapphire Yes Queen. I don't think they want the Sapphire Yes Queen. In fact, I would be happier if they wanted the Sapphire Yes Queen, because Sapphire might smack them in the face. I think they want the worst trope, which is the mammy. They want mammy, the woman who can suckle them and it'll be all right now, everything will be okay, and who will put aside her own personal family emotional development to nurture the dominant society, their family, their infrastructure. I would actually be more comfortable if they were trying to embody the sapphire imagery with this black girl magic. The thing that I find more frustrating is I think they're actually trying to encourage the kind of mammy-esque kind of like, when I hear the whole like black women will save America, it's like I see this like this massive black female bosom just suckling the nation state and giving it all of its life. I'd like to hear Angela's thoughts on that.
I actually want to say that I think it's a mixture of both. I think that they want the sassiness, and we see it in all of these, like there's a lot of contemporary movies where you've got this sassy black best friend that, is counter to whoever they're playing against.
White girl.
Yeah. I think they want that hint of sassiness as long as it is not working against them. As long as we are sassy and downing our own people and shaking our fingers at our own people and reprimanding our own people for not doing enough or not being financially literate enough or not being upwardly mobile enough, then that's fine. When we turn that shit back on white supremacy and turn that shit back on capitalism is when they're going to have a problem with it. That's not the sapphire they want. And also when I'm thinking of the mammy trope, I think of there's two different things that work there for me. While, one is the one that you just discussed, absolutely, Pascal, but also I'm also thinking of the fact that, and we don't discuss this enough, the fact of women who worked in these roles in the houses were not always nurturers. A lot of the people, the cases where women were hanged, enslaved women were hanged because they fed the family ground glass, those are mammies too. So I just want to lift them up. Like this was not all that. When we're talking about the women who served in the big house, a lot of those folks were disseminators of information because, they talked around us like we were furniture and still do. Talked around us like we were furniture, didn't know what they was talking about. Those women disseminated information. Those women, did subversive things as well. So I just want to make sure that we are that those women are present in this conversation.
No, that's a great point too, because like even in like remembering like everything's gonna be whitewashed, and like they will take our own history and try and turn even like every ounce that we can against us. So thank you.
I got listen, Sister Angela said something that was so important, right? That we got to hit on this. The sapphire used as the agent of the Black community. I vividly have the image of the mayor of Atlanta, I believe her name is Keisha Lance Bottoms, during the rebellions during the summer, chastising Black people, saying, y'all out there trying to get brown liquor. Y'all don't know how to protest. She did say that.
And even, go back.
Have to be brown.
She said brown liquor. Y'all out here looking for brown liquor.
I want to shout out. We always shout out people that we know in the chat, and actually, a really wonderful woman that I work with. She actually came in to run one of the shelters that I worked at, and I've never seen a woman get done dirty as bad as this woman. The way these people treated her. She's a comrade. Sister Kuwa, so she's in the chat and she's enjoying what she's seeing. So thank you for coming on and watching the show, Sister Kuwa.
Okay. Can I just say that
with your red rag in the back? I saw that red rag. I see that red rag in the back, Paul. You got your gang.
Don't worry about my red rag.
Paul, the mulatto. Paul, the mulatto clip.
Big, so everybody can see that shit in the back. He wanted everyone to know. You know what it is, Paul.
So you people in the chat know,
It's on the left side too.
Well, one thing I want to say, Pascal's mammy impression just made my day. So I gotta shout out to Pascal for that. But also, to be more serious, I think you saw this trope play out a lot with Georgia. That was the narrative. Stacey Abrams, Black woman, saved the country. They saved the Democratic Party. Even though if you actually dig deeper into the numbers, even just in Georgia, you'll find that there's a lot of upper middle class white people that saved Biden. But that's like a big narrative that you heard coming out of Georgia, and I think they're trying to like push Stacey Abrams into that role as the savior of the nation.
So I wanted to show you guys this. I said I was going to do this on the bonus after hours feature for patrons. And one of our nice, wonderful, talented patrons made this image. I wanted to make it the thumbnail of the show because I was really going for controversy. I feel it's like controversy week in the This Is Revolution /Zero Books Camp. Doug Lane with his fucking Glenn Greenwald video that everybody wanted to cancel him over and all this other shit. So let me see if I can share this image with you guys. I showed Marcus. Pascal told me that he would leave the show if I made it the thumbnail, so I did not, out of respect for my brother. But he did say I could show it during the show. So I want to show you guys the thumbnail. Trigger warning. It's triggering. So hold on. I'm old. Hold on.
Working on the tabs.
So can you guys see this?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Damn.
Look at hold
That's fucked up.
For real, how long?
Angela's
How long?
whole head, she was like,
Everybody,
oh.
can we go around and guess how long until this is actually issued?
Oh God.
3 years. My guess is 3 years.
I did not support this.
He did not. He did
For the
not.
record.
I was like, Pascal, I got the best image for the thumbnail. And he was like, look, man, that shit's not cool, man.
Oh.
He goes, people gonna get mad at us. I was like, that's okay, because we're gonna talk about it. He's like, no, we can't do this. And he was
I mean, if there is no viable left alternative, I'd give it 5 to 6 years.
Thank you. See, like, this is what sucks, is because they would try and do this.
But look at it this way. If someone 2 years ago would have shown me the Nancy Pelosi and the Kente Cloth kneeling, I would have said no.
You thought it was a Boondock skit, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely
You thought it
no
was a
way.
Boondock skit.
Right. And look at that. So, I mean, I think anything's possible.
That
Look,
is a DNA level insult right there.
This was kind of a joke we made when we were talking about actually getting ready to talk about this show, and we had went long on our extra segment because talk about black women capping for empire. You know, let's put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill and shut you Negroes up.
Mm-hmm.
And remember when that was part of the discussion during the Trump administration, and Steve Mnuchin was like, we're not putting this Negress on the $20 bill. And cats got mad about it.
Right. And
We're not
Biden,
thinking Andrew
isn't
Jackson.
Biden seriously considering, you know, putting her on, right? Maybe, I don't know.
Biden's going to put her on, and he might straighten her hair.
In defense of Jason, this image came up in reaction to the of putting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. And in the theme of today's show, we were saying, well, the logical extension of that, playing up on the whole kind of exploit racial grievance, was to create a Amex card black with Harriet Tubman on it.
Yeah.
Eventually, he actualized on the conversation and had
Get on the Underground Railroad to spending freedom and
in
benefits.
The secret,
you know?
I wanted to put it out into the universe, and then the universe responded by saying, "Here's your cancellation papers."
Yeah. But that's, I mean, something that
Angela's shaking her head
because it's disgusting to think that might be a thing. And when we have, you know, Jared Ball did a real good take on Killer Mike and his Greenwood Bank.
I haven't watched that yet. I gotta watch that.
Angela, go. I know. You and Jared are cool. Did you watch that show?
Yes, I did. And yes, I mean, yeah. If you haven't watched it, y'all want to.
It's you know, Jared Ball has a really good analysis on the myth of the black. I think he wrote a whole book about it, right?
Right.
The myth of black buying power, and he really called out where Greenwood Bank is getting their money from. He called out kind of the whole idea of that shit and Black Wall Street.
Yes.
My feelings are still hurt, Jared Ball.
Well, and this is something though that like it's like I feel like in what we see in practice now is something worse. You know, whatever black power, black capital commanded or would command, it's like we're not even like basing shit off of that anymore. Now it is just sports athletes that that are getting most of it, because you could say, oh, hey, we're Deval Patrick. If black capital was really powerful in any way, you know, like Deval Patrick would have kept going a little bit further. But no, it's all on just athletes who could be poor in hours. I was just this whole like especially the voting thing in Georgia is like people are counting on corporations and moving some all-star game to do something when the answer should be no, like get in the streets and make sure people in power aren't in power anymore.
And it's just amazing that on the one hand, someone could critique Reagan and trickle down economics, right? But then some people, that same person will then indulge in the fantasy that, you know, we have more black business owners. Somehow I'm going to see that money because, and I'm like, where is this fantasy coming from? Or, I mean, even worse, you know, you could say, at least if you have a business and community, you know, you will benefit from their tax revenue in different ways. But, you know, we want to give tax breaks to all the small businesses, especially small businesses owned by people of color. So then you're really not seeing that money in any way. And I'm just amazed that, you know, on the one hand, we can beat up on Reagan, but somehow when it comes to black businesses, we'll indulge in the fantasy of trickle down. Like, you know, LeBron owning the Red Sox, I'm not going to see a cent of that.
You know, Killer Mike is a, go ahead. We
gotta really analyze where the origins of the black capitalist mythology comes from and its connection to black nationalist damage thesis. The black nationalist damage thesis that black people have been broken by slavery and Jim Crow. And since they are broken, they must prove, or as I wrote, must redeem themselves and show white society that they can do for itself. A lot of this isn't really based on real political economy. It's really based on an emotional belief that certain class of black people have, that black people are damaged, fractured, shattered, and need to be remade and rebuilt. And what is profoundly saddening is that much of this comes actually from black political thought and certain segments, certain conservative segments of black nationalism, not revolutionary nationalism, not other aspects of nationalism. But there is an element of black nationalism that plays on the damage thesis and the need to redeem ourselves as a part of the project. And black capitalism fulfills that narrative.
I mean, isn't that just a rehashing of the old? It's just another way that or another manifestation of that old belief that we have to be good enough. You know, we've been emancipated. We have to show the white folks that we're good enough to be among them. We have to show them that we deserve to be here. We deserve rights. We deserve to not be murdered and run off our land. We deserve exactly a version of the meritocracy.
Right.
And it's something I think that we have, or a certain class of us, which y'all have been really good in discussing, by the way, have been a certain class of black folks have been very invested in keeping that going. And, you know, for people who are just trying to, when we're thinking about cash poor and working class black folks, thinking about the fact that you're just trying to keep your head above water, you know, you trying to live, you're not digging any deeper into that and saying, wait, the people who are putting this stuff out also happen to be people who, you know, do pretty well under capitalism, do pretty well, you know, and they're convincing us that, you know, have no problem convincing us that our communities are inherently damaged, inherently irredeemable in some places.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's so paradoxical coming from, you know, when it's coming from the black nationalist wing, because, you know, it's kind of draped in this militant rhetoric. But as Angela just said, like the substance of it is not militant in any sense, you know.
Yeah, no, this is something that like I've had to kind of like reflect on myself, and just even like what has been the role of like the black veteran, and like at first in you know, Frederick Douglass, like convincing, hey, this is how we fight for freedom and equality. You know, going into World War II, where black GIs, the first time they felt any semblance of actual like equality was, you know, being deployed, and then having to come back home. You know, Vietnam, same type of thing. But yeah, you know, almost into in its entirety, literally just capping for capitalism. You know, and even like my dad, he got his citizenship through army service, you know. So I don't know. It's like this whole thing of like, yeah, no matter what, if you even think in any way, if you're trying to not even self-aggrandize, but just prove yourself to the system, you know, if you're playing by the system's rules, it's always going to end up as bad.
I remember watching an interview with Jim Brown recently on YouTube, and he was talking about how he had a disagreement with Martin Luther King because he was saying that Martin Luther King believed in violence and he didn't believe in nonviolence. And he first of all, he assumed that Martin Luther King didn't believe that economics was the path to Black liberation, which is one of the biggest lies about the civil rights movement, that they didn't have an economic agenda.
It's a different kind of economics, right?
Yeah, they had a profound economic agenda. But what happened is that the Johnson administration, in the height of the Cold War, would not implement it at that time for a variety of reasons. But he was saying, I believed in economics. And I said, when I looked at the Koreans, they didn't seem to have to talk about nonviolence. When I looked at the Chinese, or I looked at the Jews, and this again, another consistent trope about Black nationalists, which was used during Black Power, the belief in ethnic pluralism. We can be like the Irish, we can be like the Jews, we can be like the Italians, and we can develop our own economies, and we can block. And what this fails to realize is, number one, the population density of of Black Americans compared to other ethnic groups is totally different. And number two, the way in which Black identity in America has been reduced in America up till the 20th century, sharecropping and domestic labor, and the way in which capitalism requires Black identity to be rendered to the reserve army of surplus labor. If these people seem to believe that somehow the way in which capitalism interfaces with Asians, Chinese, Italian Americans, and Irish people is the same way in which it interfaces with Black people, which has never been the case. All right. Not to say that there aren't ways in which capitalism oppresses all workers, which is obviously the truth, but there is a particular nuance in the way in which American capitalism has extracted labor from African American workers and disinvested them in integrating into the capitalist economy. And all of this discourse of like, we can be like the Irish, we can be like the Germans, we can be like the Asians, this forgets all of that.
Right. And something, Bayard Rustin used to say a lot, talking about, well, what about the Irish? What about the Italians? He's saying like, they didn't advance through self-help either. They advanced, they advanced partly through the trade union movement, partly through benefiting from New Deal policies, things like public education. It's not like they advanced through self-help and entrepreneurship either. And so we shouldn't expect that Black people could be that much different,
Well, that was also a lot of.
Also, Jim Brown wound up supporting Trump, right?
Jim Brown sucks. One of the greatest football players of all time, but as
right, am I wrong?
Talk about how he hated the March on Washington,
right? Or he went to the White House, right, and supported Trump in a way.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Jim's like
I because a lot of people were like, "Oh, Pascal, you always hard on black nationalism, blah blah blah." I'm like, no, I'm not a black nationalist. I was at one time. If you guys want to read a good book explaining the ideological origins of Black nationalism, read The Golden Age of Black Nationalism by Wilson Jeremiah Moses. And his thesis is that it's not a revolutionary project. It's a fundamentally conservative, reactionary project. Now, there are types of Black nationalism. There's revolutionary nationalism, there are different types. But the traditional kind of very conservative Black nationalism has never been a revolutionary or radical project at all. And that's why it's not surprising that you see so many, and I saw this in Trump's 2016 and 2020 election, so many, particularly Black men who were Black nationalists gravitating to Trump.
And
Am
I mean,
wrong?
if you think about the rhetoric that people like Trump put out and how it would appeal to those segments, you think about the fact that these are folks who are very patriarchal, who are very, very homophobic, very transphobic, very misogynist in a lot of different ways. They align. So, I mean, yeah, Trump is,
Even
that's a whole nother discussion in and of itself about the fact that he's a symptom and not the problem. But it was disappointing, but not surprising to see certain segments or certain types of Black men aligning themselves with, someone like him and the rhetoric, because that's the shit they agree with. One of my issues with organizing with people who were, that was their mindset is, I asked them, in your Black utopia, where is my heathen, queer, tattooed, pierced, heavy metal fan, free thinking Black ass gonna fit in your Black utopia? Because I'm not about to, the way that you view women and women's roles in the way that you're envisioning what things will look like after Black liberation or during Black liberation, I don't fit in any of that. So what the hell are you gonna do with me? So that was a
I thought you were talking about Jason for a second there.
Jason ain't queer,
right?
I don't
Like
think.
tattooed, metal,
Queer.
No, I'm queer, but yeah. So it was just like, where am I gonna fit in this idea of your Black utopia? And I've never gotten an answer to that.
No, because they don't know where to put you. They're like, there's a wing over there.
Oh, they do. Oh, trust me, they do.
Well, no, and that's like,
it ain't somewhere I'm going.
Honest, yeah. Let's be honest. The honest is
they know.
No. They would probably try and put Angela back in her place. Where like that's what that's where it is, and that's like, I mean, yes, where it just.
Let's talk about something controversial. At the same time that we have that reactionary component
Starting now, shit.
There you go.
That reactionary component among nationalists. What do we think about the liberal foundation world highlighting those nuanced types of Black women and trying to use their alienation from certain segments of traditional Black thought and catapult them as the face of Black leadership for the future? Black Lives Matter. I mean, if you will,
Well, I don't know if this is getting at what you were just saying, but I think it kind of comes back to like certain agendas allow them to do that. And in a way, it's like, I wouldn't even call it co-optation. I mean, if the agendas are kind of aligned, is it really co-optation? And that's why I think the, foundation world was able to so successfully use certain elements of Black power, because I think there actually was more alignment than, some people would like to think. So I don't know. Do you call that co-optation when the alignment is actually there mostly? I don't know.
That's a damn good point.
But that's a whole can of worms.
I mean, no, it is, and it's fucked up because people don't want to hear that shit. People want to think that some of these cats have like the most righteous fucking intentions, and then something happens and poverty strikes them and they take a bag, and it's like, no, this was kind of the plan all along.
Or, and again, even sometimes the intentions can be fine, but it's like, I'm sure there are plenty of capitalist small business owners that have great intentions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll go back to the line Adolph Reed always says about sincerity is an overrated trait. It's like, I'm sure most people are sincere, but if you're doing a lot of harm, that after a while it doesn't really matter.
Pascal, Marcus, Paul, I think Paul's done some coverage of this. I just want to say on a side note, Paul has a video out on Jacobin right now about what's it called again? Union, your new labor video.
Oh, about Nixon?
About Nixon and the union. That was a really good video.
How the right courted the labor movement.
Thank you, brother. How the right court. Yeah, that was a really
Nixon
good
was
video.
a smart motherfucker. And he also got James Brown on his side. So Hey,
And I
smarter
watched
than
it-
Trump.
I've been falling down this rabbit hole of these 1-minute videos that Mike Judge does. And if you don't know Mike Judge, he's the guy that did King of the Hill, Office Space, et cetera, Beavis and Butthead. And he has a series, it's an animated series called Tales from the Tour Bus, and it's about music genres that he is a fan of. And so he has a whole series on funk music and has these really actually good interviews with like Bootsy Collins and shit, like people that were actually with James Brown and his band, talking about James Brown, the man, and of course their tour bus stories. So there, a lot of them are gossipy stories, but James Brown is an interesting individual because he was just so self-centered because he had a horrible life growing up. And sometimes James Brown is almost like Martin Luther King, where he's stuck in "I'm black and I'm proud" James Brown, and we forget like the James Brown that endorsed Richard Nixon.
I remember Bruce Dixon told me that when James Brown first put together that song, that the Panthers actually had to get at him because his original lyric was going to be "I'm black but I'm proud."
Ooh.
Damn. Damn.
Ooh.
Oof.
Ooh. That would, no.
James Brown comes from a whole different era.
I'm just
And
like
let's
the whole
put this in perspective about power. It's about black people can't be racist because we don't talk about it, but people say it because they don't have any power. James Brown not only owned the rights to his music, James Brown bought a pressing plant and radio stations so he could record and he bought recording studios. Actually, to the end, he had recording studios so he could record a song, and he had 2 labels, one for full albums and one for 45s. So he understood through Little Richard the power of payola and the power of radio. So James Brown was like, why would I pay these punk ass radio DJs to play my song when I can buy a radio station? So James Brown bought multiple radio stations in markets where there was tons of Negroes, bought record pressing plants and studios. All right, band, we're going to record a song. I'm going to fucking press it. Then I'm going to ship it to my stations and break my music. That's power on a level that we only understand through the lens of Live Nation, only through the lens of Golden Voice.
Right.
Joanna's saying James Brown owned the means of production.
Right.
He owned the means, and you know what happened? Kissinger apparently said, no, I'm sorry, Spiro T. Agnew apparently said, any man that can stop a riot, because let's remember James Brown played after Martin Luther King died, and they were like, we're gonna show this on PBS because we're afraid these niggas are gonna burn down Boston like they've been doing all over the country. People actually come on stage and start fucking with James Brown, and he calms these motherfuckers down because he's still ghetto ass James Brown. And Spiro T. Agnew says a man that can stop a riot can start a riot, and they shut his black ass down. The people that he actually was capping for end up shutting him down because they're afraid of him.
And his, I don't know if this is the exact quote, but he was saying like, for him, black power is green power, which going back to the Jim Brown thing about money. Now, theoretically, that could be a good thing if you're talking about, unionizing most black workers, but of course, that's not what he was. And not to do shameless self-promotion, but I did a segment a while ago, I think it was on Weekends, on, the limits of black capitalism and buying black, where I covered about, James Brown and also Jim Brown at the time, and Sammy Davis Jr., endorsing Nixon and, all that kind of, but again, it's like, to say, and this is the problem where it's like to say James Brown, betrayed black people or something, it's kind of wrong because from James Brown's point of view as a capitalist, why not endorse Nixon? There was nothing contradictory from his point of view. If you are a wealthy black person, if Nixon's talking about lower taxes and blah, blah, blah,
and
blah,
Nixon was all about black power. There's a clip that we played a while ago. I'll try to find it where Nixon's like, "Oh, I love these black power Negroes."
By the way, Janice Graham, and she told me this before, she was at the concert where James Brown stopped the riot in Boston. She's former Black Panther, by the way.
James Brown to me is an interesting figure because you have this man that didn't appreciate, he wasn't cooning. right?
Right.
He wouldn't like push Negroes to the side to get next to white boys or white people. There's actually a story that his manager tells, a writer tells that a black man, a young black kid, is doing an interview of James Brown, and a white Hollywood producer barges in the room, and James Brown is so offended that this dude stopped his interview. Like, you don't see me talking to this young brother here giving an interview, because the guy they wanted to make a movie about James Brown, and James Brown tells the Hollywood producer, there's no way in the world you can make a movie about me. There's no way in the world you can write a movie about me. He's like, I got to write the movie, I got to produce the movie, and I got to direct the movie. If you want to make a movie about James Brown, now get the fuck out of here so I can finish this interview. Like, hearing that shit, it's funny. Like I said, he's a complicated individual. I don't think he's a simple read. Like, he's just a simple black capitalist. But
Jason, I just sent you the link to Nixon on Black Power if you want to play it.
I do. Say something profound while I cue it up.
Paul, you said some profound stuff, man. We should let the Shemiga from Philadelphia, who's a Crip.
I know it's blood. He's a bud. Pyru Paul.
Right.
Blood. Pyru Paul.
Don't put it on. You don't know what kind of trouble you're gonna get in.
Right.
I know you don't hang out in the hood.
The Philly niggas is no joke, Paul. Don't fuck around with them.
You're already
bad enough.
You're already trying to get me in trouble with Umar.
Real talk, Paul. I felt real. The other day, I was like, you know what? I gotta stop doing Umar shit around Paul, because them niggas might fuck him up. And it
was weird. I mean, there was a rock came through the window the other day. I was like, that's weird. No, I'm playing. Angela, I'm playing.
I would feel so bad if one of Umar's people just fucking caught Paul out there in them streets.
Yo, you would laugh a little bit though. You gotta admit, you would laugh like.
It depends. It depends. If they just like talk some shit, I'd laugh.
Right.
If they, punch the shit out of you and you didn't see it coming, I'd be upset. I wouldn't be on the first thing smoking. I get to Philly eventually, but I would help you out.
I love this clip because Nixon sounds like Louis Farrakhan. It's wonderful.
To be shifting. Some aspects of black power are very disturbing to us because it means revolution. It means violence. But other aspects of black power are very constructive because it means that black people, they want to stand on their own feet. They want to have black banks and not just go to white banks. They want to have black businesses and not just go to the white businesses. And they should have, and they will have.
Now imagine James Brown, hearing that. Of course he thinks that this dude is the right man for the job. Sorry, I didn't want to play where I feel.
What James Brown doesn't know is that Rich is saying, of course we want these Negroes to go to black banks. You think we want them to go to Goldman Sachs and get into real capital and get real money? Let them scrap their Negro pennies together. Of course, yes.
Also, everything that he talked about is not a threat to capitalism. That's all I could think about. Is like, of course I support what they're talking about. He only lifted up two of the things that like the Black Power movement was actually discussing, like the capitalist shit. You wasn't talking about us owning the means of production for ourselves. You were not talking about, socializing housing, socializing the things that we were asking for. You didn't bring that shit up. You brought up they want their business, they want their banks, things that are not a direct threat to the capitalist system in this country. So of course
Paul said about Black Power, which is very, 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 very spot on, is that it meant many different things to many different Black people as well, not just to different the ruling class. Because what CORE and who was the brother who was president of CORE at the time? Oh my God,
McKissick?
No, not McKissick. It was the Caribbean
Farmer.
brother. He died recently. The guy who beat up Al Sharpton.
Roy Ennis.
Right.
Yeah,
what Roy Ennis was talking about in terms of Black Power was not the same thing that Stokely Carmichael was talking about in terms of Black Power.
And I wish I had the exact correct thing, but one of the first Black Power conferences it was, I think, in '67 in Newark, put together by Stokely Carmichael and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. I mean, you would be surprised to see some of the co-sponsors, including the New York Police Department and some other big, I think it was some sort of oil company. Again, I don't have the exact figures. I did write something about it. I'll have to go back and look. But again, when I saw that, and that, again, went back to like, well, I don't know if this is co-optation. This seemed like there was a lot of agenda aligned from the beginning. But I'm actually going to look that up right now.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this kind of ties into the disorganized nature of organizing against like what you don't want. And, you know, Stokely Carmichael even talked about this, is that like, that's not unity, right? You need to have a unity of goals, or unity, like where are we going, in order to have true unity. And that's, you know, going back to Nixon and all these things like that. Saying, hey, we don't like poor black people around us, or we don't like poor black people, is something that like a black nationalist could hear that sentence. They're like, well, yeah, we don't want poor black people, or we don't want us around you either. And there's really no unity in where are we going. And at that point, the people in power get to decide where we're going, right? You just only decided, hey, that's what we don't like. And then in some cases, we could be getting things worse, you know, when you're talking about all the different sorts of bills and reforms and all the bullshit that comes along with just being in the United States. But no, at the end of the day, we have normalized a disorganized sense of unity that doesn't, you know, doesn't really direct us in any way. It just says we're leaving this one area, and it literally mean, you know, everyone just walking in their own separate way.
I want to really touch on something Paul said earlier, which is a very good point, about how the ruling class was very willing to coalesce around Black Power. This is a good book you guys should read. I just gave the link. Top Down, The Ford Foundation, Black Power, and the Reinvention of Racial Liberalism, Politics and Culture in Modern America, by Karen Ferguson. It's a great book, and it talks about how the American ruling class and its institutions were very happy to coalesce around the aspirations of Black Power, to basically engage in the concept that I talk about on the show all the time, to render Black politics into the politics of containment, in that it's a means of social control under a collective Black community in which its political aspirations can be negotiated through an elite tier and maintained in a contained fashion.
Now, yeah, I got a question for the person here who has run outside of the, you know, elite political structure. Angela, I guess, yeah. Can you talk about maybe a little bit about what motivated you to run for like a part of the Green Party ticket, but also kind of the grander sense of things of like, I mean, where do you think the left can just gain some ground as far as the organizing effort, the unifying effort?
I think you just touched on it. What you just said about this the way that we move in this space of going from what we don't want and not being super specific about what it is we do want. You're absolutely right. And one of the things about the platform that I ran on is it's everything I want. And it's very specifically what I want. I want socialism. I want socialized housing for all. I want Medicare for all as a community-controlled national health service. I want the nationalization of our utilities. I want the internet to be publicly owned. I want an economic bill of rights for all people. I want a guaranteed income above poverty for all people that need it. So just talking about, you know, and it was really funny because when Howie called me about running, after I ran in 2016, I said I was never doing this shit again because it is exhausting. It is heartbreaking. It's beating your head against a wall because a lot of what we're talking about are things people know that they need. There's a lot of enthusiasm for for these things. And the minute that you say socialism, people go ah! Like that. So it's just like, it's like, but you want this, right? This is how we need it. And so, and just trying to be heard. And the thing I think that stood out with the 2020 election cycle was you had this really odious manifestation of everything is wrong with this country down to its core that was literally sitting in the Oval Office. So we had that working against us. We had a plague and still do. We had an uprising and still do to a degree. And so you have those three things happening and people understanding that, something has got to change, but that thing that's sitting in the White House right now is so horribly bad that we got to get him out of there.
There's dang Cheeto in the White House.
Exactly. Mango Mussolini, as a lot of folks like to call him.
Mango. That's the first time I heard that shit. Damn.
I like
alliteration on that bitch.
My favorite description of him was mangled apricot hell beast. I thought that was fucking gold. But and it's exactly, we got to find ways beyond electoralism, electoral politics. And I'm happy to tell anybody, I've always said it. It is a means to an end, but it is not an end in itself. It is a tool in a toolbox that if you have the ability to use it, if you want to use it, if it is available to you, then use that tool. But do not go cast your ballot and then stand back and say, oh, I did my part. That's it. No, because as you've seen, these people operate, elected officials in this country are operating like damn rock stars. Like you are above the law. Well, you know what I'm saying. Like you're above the law. You don't have to listen to us.
Yep.
The fact that you had all of this public outcry, bipartisan, across classes for something as simple and low-hanging fruit as Medicare for all during a goddamn pandemic. Mm-hmm. And you have the power to make that happen. And you are looking people in the face and saying, we're not going to do that. If that didn't bring it home to folks that these folks aren't listening to you, that I don't know what.
And if I can, there's something I want to drive down on, especially when you mentioned like Medicare for all with localized control as a national healthcare service. Now, something's like you added on something that like I don't think the overall left, really talks about when they, even discussing Medicare for all as like a single payer healthcare system is also still just a Band-Aid. A single payer healthcare system does not fix the closed down hospitals, that does not fix the hospitals and healthcare centers that are just should be there that are not there. Yeah. And so
especially in rural America, right?
Yeah. Well, and like, I mean, Paul, you probably tell us pretty good, right? Like, I mean, I know that Philly's gone through a few, especially maybe like 2 years ago. One of the major
Ottoman Hospital, right? Closed down. Yep.
And I mean, that's one of many across the nation. New York City, Cuomo has just been going gangbusters with tearing about that healthcare system. So I just wanted to recognize that as something that you said, that Medicare for all and talking about this is like single payer insurance. It's still bullshit. And if the most left in this country isn't talking about an actual healthcare service, a nationwide healthcare service, then we are doing a disservice on that. So,
well, to what Angela said, do you think it's a bit of like capitalist realism? Like we're so caught up in the rock star like nature of these political figures that once all that energy is put into a campaign to elect progressives, and then we kind of sit back and wait for the progressives to do all this work with no real organized left, no real relationship to workers' movements. And I know,
honestly, I think people did exactly what Angela said, and especially now it's like with AOC is like the most popular target in the world, and like not that I'm saying that she can't be critiqued. I am frustrated with the amount of energy that goes into critiquing her because there is not enough power in that one brown lady that's running the district of that's in fucking sophomore. Like, there's just not enough power in that one body.
Yeah, and I think
it's just frustrating to see so much time wasted.
Go for it, Paul.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem overall with this, and there's a great article in Jackman, it was written years ago by Seth Ackerman called Blueprint for a New Party. And I think part of the problem is like we actually don't have real political parties in like they do in other countries where you're actually a member of the party, you pay dues to it, you have some level of control over it. And the parties, I think our understanding of electoral politics is so distorted here because we don't have our own labor or socialist party. And I think in these other countries that do, you don't have these kind of like, to me, there's sometimes a weird debate about like, well, either we shouldn't care about elections or we should totally. It's like for them, it's kind of this basic understanding that, of course, we need to engage in elections as an expression of our power in society. And it's easier to think that way when you have a party that can legitimately say we are a Labor Party, we're a Socialist Party, things like that. I think that there's a much more healthy understanding of like, the parties and the movement go together. And in fact, in the best cases, the labor parties or socialist parties are active agents of facilitating movements as they're running candidates. But in this country, we don't have that. And I think it really kind of distorts that kind of thing. And, like my father's from Barbados. They have two labor parties. Both their parties are Labor Party. And, so growing up, and a lot of people in my family were active in the party. And as union people, it was a very basic thing of like, the Labor Party, of course, we're going to engage in elections. Of course, we need our people. We need to have the majority in government at the same time as we're doing our work in our unions. It should flow together. But because we don't actually have real parties, you're not a member of the Democratic Party. You're not. Like, you don't pay dues. You don't have any control. It really distorts what we can do here.
And what's interesting that when you say that, Pascal and I talked to Brian Mayer of Brazil Wire, and I was in Brazil in 2019. And while I was there was a huge strike because the president, Bolsonaro, was trying to like either privatize pensions or kill pensions or raise the age when you could get your pension. I forgot exactly what he was doing, but pretty much large swaths of the country shut down to the point where airports shut down. They were burning tires in the freeway. So it wasn't like, you see these protests where motherfuckers shut the freeway down, take a bunch of selfies, they go about their business. They shut down all public transportation in Sao Paulo, which is like the biggest city in the country.
And the Workers' Party in Brazil is a great, and they're not perfect. None of these parties, in fact, many labor parties in Europe are starting to sell out, but I'd still rather be in a position to have a labor party to sell out than nothing,
or to have a real left. And that's what he's talking about. He's like, and Brian's from the States. He's like, there's no real left in America like there is in places like Brazil.
And in Brazil, that was built up over time. I mean, they started out in a region, right? And I mean, kind of in the 80s, and they first were contending for these lower level seats, and they just built that shit up. I mean, literally over 30, 40 years to the point where they could lead a national government. But even when they were small, at least they had a party of their own.
Can I ask?
And take tens of millions of people out of poverty once Lula gets into office, and you could definitely critique Lula when he gets in office, and the political machine in Brazil is very different than what we have here. The way it's set up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, I was going to ask if anyone sees any real building, and like, I think DSA now is like one of the bigger, at least most popular, just because of some of the elected officials that have been able to come in. But Socialist Alternative, PSL, there's a few other organizations that are growing, so do we see that as something that could be in our future, that hey, as long as we act in correct ways of solidarity to organizing, that we can get to there, to those functions? Or do y'all think that we're kind of like completely lost and we're starting from like ground zero?
I want to see where here. I was gonna let Angela talk. Trey, Why don't you let the ladies eat first, Trey?
Oh damn.
Y'all are so bad.
We are terrible to each other.
Y'all are so bad.
It's because we love each other, though.
Like I said, I am a stan of this podcast, so y'all already know. I know it's love. I think that it's possible. I think that one of the things that inhibits us here in this country with building a left that may not be something that inhibits people in other countries, and y'all please correct me if I'm not speaking correct, but we got a problem in this country of believing in what's possible. A whole lot of us don't believe that socialized medicine, something that the government is running so that it is something that everyone gets. We don't think that that's possible, even though Cuba has been doing this beautifully for decades, and they're not far from us, and have been very willing and very open about, sharing this with us. We in this country don't believe in what is possible. We're afraid, which is what
is
up
that
against with that.
Sister Angela, isn't that capitalist realism, that we can envision a world with no war before we can envision a world with no capitalism? And that's and Mark Fisher's, get the book. I'll put a link up to the book. Of course, it's a zero book. It's like 90 pages long, but it's a series of essays kind of about how stuck within capitalism that we are, that we just can't get beyond it. And I see that in electoral politics. I see that in the online left, which of course isn't the real.
Who can I ask? Who? Right. I mean, like, is that like a prevailing thing? Is like we can end war before because I mean, we say war is a racket.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every time it's like when we talk about military funding, that is the gangster of capitalism, right? That is the motherfucker that gets to that's holding the baseball bat. That's to knock the knees out of every country that says, no, we don't want to have the US dollar as our base fucking currency whenever we sell shit out of our country. No, we don't want to let in all you motherfuckers to do whatever infrastructure or put whatever shit you want to do, sell whatever bullshit to our people. Anytime that happens, guess what? War comes knocking.
And that's what, I mean, going back to something Pascal noted before about the Johnson administration, I mean, the Vietnam War killed the freedom budget, which would have created basically social democracy, at least in this country. But Jason, I don't know if he meant the quote. I think the quote he might have meant was, we can envision the end of the world before end of capitalism.
I'm looking for it now.
Yeah, I think it's that, which makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think to Marx's point.
Sorry, I was like, what?
Hold on.
To Marx's
earlier, we gotta develop a book list for our readers, for our viewers, man.
Right.
Look, we can't be giving these people all this free shit.
Speaking of capitalist realism, what do you want? Free shit?
By the way,
who do you think I am?
Super chats are working. Super chats are working. Please contribute to the super chats if you feel so inclined. Subscribe, share, and like our page. Hit the bell. Also, Jason will be putting up our link to our Patreon page as well.
Yeah, at some point.
But to Marcus's earlier point, sorry, go ahead, Angela.
No, I was just Ms. Graham in the chat. I don't know if I'm getting your title wrong. Is talking about holdups in Havana, excuse me, about it's not what we think it is, and I respect that. And also, I didn't get diagnosed in this country under this current healthcare system with fibroids that I've suffered from my entire life, adult life, until I was 45 years old, under this particular system. So if I am wrong for believing that the possibility of something is better, coming from a city where every major hospital that serves the inner city has been closed, where healthcare access is a joke for most people, where most of my life, if I did not have health insurance through my job, I didn't have it at all. If I feel that, the possibility of socialized medicine somewhere, no, I'm 47 actually. If I feel that the concept of socialized medicine would be better than what we currently have, that's why I feel that way. Because most of my life, I have not had access to proper medical care. And the stories about medical apartheid that every Black woman I know can tell are absolutely egregious. And I'm sure that you know that too. So that's why I said what I said.
And I don't think there's really no way for anyone to argue that our healthcare system, is somehow something that we could stand on and talk down to almost any other nation, because our healthcare system is actually a detriment to healthcare everywhere, while giving small crumbs of healthcare to those that can gain access to it. So, and the thing is too, is like when we talk about imagining, this is something that we talk about, at least I try to talk about all the time. The United States, we have a fully government run healthcare system nationwide. We do have a foothold that we could actually expand from, right? And some of it's just replicating programs and systems, having people come from one payroll to another payroll, right? We're not talking about all these big leaps. Hospital buildings are hospital buildings. The VA that I go to, it looks exactly like your fucking hospital. But guess what? They don't ask me how, they don't ask me like, how am I going to pay for this when I walk in? I just put my little stuff in a little kiosk. They say, hey, did you get here safely? Yeah. You feeling depressed? Anything? No, I'm good today. All right, please sit. They'll be with you in 15 minutes. When I leave, all I got to do is schedule when I'm coming back. And there is one of these fools, Tom Watson, big neo-lib piece of shit. He said, oh, I didn't have to ask, they didn't ask when I pay. I could get used to this type of stuff. But he was one of the biggest advocates against, Bernie Sanders being able to win a primary and everything like that. One of the biggest people against actually having structures that would provide this for everybody. And the thing that's like this is what makes, it's kind of depressing me to think about, is that we're in such a diseased landscape that even something that would be beneficial to capital, i.e. a healthier workforce, is something that they argue against only for the sheer benefit of a portion of the market. And that's something that's just like, holy shit.
And Paul, you were right. It is the imagine the end of the world before we can make sense of capitalism. You were correct. I was wrong. See,
what were you gonna say, Paul, before I cut you off?
No. I mean, I think to Marx's question a while ago about just like where are we on the left and stuff like that. And I think to me, I mean, it's all relative, but there's no doubt we're still in a better position than we were in 2014. And I think even looking at the Bernie campaign, and this is something I think Bernie himself said, and I think he's right, like we are winning the battle of ideas, because polls, show on Medicare for all, for example, most people agree with us, but we haven't won the battle of politics and organization, and that can't come overnight. But I think, again, we're in a better place than we were. More people are breaking out of that capitalist realism logic. All of a sudden, so many things are on the table now that weren't, even though we don't have the power to win them yet. But I think, I'm an active member of DSA, and I'll freely admit DSA is kind of all over the place. I mean, you'll get different things going on in different chapters. And obviously I'm going to be biased to say, like, I think what we're doing in Philly is good. But I think if we play our cards right in this moment, we can develop something real. And I think, in Philly, we have been working with a lot of unions and actually making big strides on Medicare for all within the labor movement, and getting more unions that before were not involved bought into that. And I think that's the kind of work that I think builds on an institutional level to get us to that point of having the power beyond just winning the battle of ideas, because that's not even half the battle. So, it's hard to say because it's all relative, but, think about what it was like in 2014. I'd say we're on better terrain now than we were then.
I was deployed in 2014. I had my head up my own ass of imperialism in 2014. So I've come a long way. But yeah, there's something like I've had to see is like, that's why I'm here, right? It's like the questioning of like, why the hell did Obama send me all these places? He was supposed to be the hope and change dude. But I mean, things are different now, you know, like at least especially too, it's like with young people than they were, you know, like, yeah, there was a huge movement fighting the Iraq war that like actively got tamped down by the government. I'd like to think people are getting more and more anti-war, but that's like the thing, like, I don't know.
I think they are to a degree, right? I think to a degree people don't want to see their family members go off to fight, which is why the draft, I think if there was another draft, people would lose their shit. There's often a person in the chat that wants to bring back the draft because he thinks that would be the most anti-war thing to do, because then people would really push back against imperialism. I don't know.
I mean, like I've heard that argument, but
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, in one way, I agree with Paul, what he was saying, and I think Angela, since she and I are closer in age, I think we will agree in this sense that the political Overton window in terms of what is able to be discussed as policy prescriptions has expanded significantly in recent history, but it is still at a time in which we have a very burgeoning reactionary right wing as well. So it's a weird phenomenon. We have an expanding Overton window from the left, but we also have a growing reactionary movement on the right. So I'd like to hear people's thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think kind of like going off what Paul was saying, it was like winning the battle of ideas, but not like the battle of actions. You know, how do you, you know, I guess
I think you're right.
And that, I mean, honestly, too, is like I look to you, Angela. You know, you've got organizing like experience. You've got experience galvanizing people to your cause. So, like,
I mean, it just depends. I mean, a lot of the organizing that I did, I was the legislative director for the transit union where I'm from for a while. And so getting people using that as a jump off for other things that the community needed was it wasn't that hard. I wasn't having to build from the ground up with that, because transit is a hub, for me, was a hub issue to all sorts of other things.
Like people getting,
yeah, exactly. Like people getting Medicare access, or like the fact that a lot of people in Milwaukee, because I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally. A lot of folks in Milwaukee who use public transit are also people who are using services provided, by the state. And so you need to know when they're cutting your access to food stamps. You need to know when they're trying to pass a bill that would make certain things that were currently misdemeanors upgrade them to felonies.
Yep.
You need to know about that kind of shit. So it was easy, I guess, for me to organize people around those things, because they were, things that were right there, and I was already in that. Coming from where I am right now, that I live in a city where I don't really know who's moving things, what is super important to people here, because the South is a whole different place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and this is Florence, South Carolina, so it's not like this hotbed of unrest.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, what is important to people. So, that landscape changes as far as what you want to organize folks around. It's tricky. But I think that one of the most important things that we can do as far as being leftist, and particularly being Black leftist, or if you're a BIPOC leftist, stand on that shit. Stand on that shit. Like, if these are the things that you believe in, don't be pushed back because, of the things that the Democrats have co-opted from us, have taken from us, and watered down and then handed to the public. No, stand on the fact that we are unapologetically left. We're not asking for single payer. We're asking for a socialized medicine program that is administered by the government because they owe it to you as someone who lives in this country. They owe these things to you. The same health care that these folks are receiving who are elected officials and that their family receives, why do you not deserve the same thing? We're paying for it. You should have it too. And so I think that just being unapologetically leftist, because like y'all are saying, there is a growing push towards fascism in this country. I mean, just call it what it is. And
Yeah.
I'd like to interject because you're making some important points. I want to really address this because, this is, Black Folk Saturday.
This is the free Saturday where we don't cut it off after an hour and go to patrons only. So if you guys are enjoying what you're seeing, feel free, if you feel so inclined, to drop a couple dimes in the super chat.
Well, before I was so rudely interrupted, I want to address what
that I did. And I did it on purpose.
Angela, you said something very important. You said, if we're going to be Black leftists, stand on that. I really want to talk about being Black and on the left, and why I believe, and I've said this on this show before, that there will be no left politics in America without Black people. Now, I'm not saying without Black politics. I said without Black people participating. And one of the reasons why I believe that is that if Black people don't participate in the left, Black politics will be used to neutralize the left.
Crush it.
And I think that for me, one of the big, I think what you said is absolutely correct. And then the big question this is posed on the left, and there's so many disagreements, is how to involve Black people in politics. And my thing I've been railing against, because my experience with organizing is cutting against this logic all the time, is I think there's many people, and in my experience, mostly white people, who assume that, oh man, if we're going to organize with Black people, we got to use the most woke racial language all the time. That's the only way it's going to happen. And in my experience, which is not universal, I'm doing what I'm doing in Philly, it really has not been about that. Like, it's not like Black people are out there waiting for people to sound like whatever, it's more about engaging on the issues that people care about. I mean, like what Angela was saying, like in many cities, public transit is something that's going to affect many people, especially Black working people. It just so happens that, in a city like Philly, if you're engaging with the labor movement, you're engaging with an extremely diverse constituency inherently. And many of the unions we work with are, like sanitation workers union, union UPS workers. I'm in the teachers union. These are all unions with majority Black membership and also Black leadership. And so that's where I get a little worried that I think people are making certain assumptions about how to engage Black people, which of course is not a monolith, which we all understand. And I think they're drawing kind of wrong conclusions that everyone out there is like a Black Panther and waiting to hear the most militant racial rhetoric. I don't think it works that way.
No, and I'm like, honestly, like, I think you are, Paul, you're hitting like what me and Jason, or Jason and I, right, to be grammatically correct, so no one comes at me. What Jason and I had talked about, like, before we had started, doing these streams and everything like that, and just make sure people know, and like it ties into what Pascal says all the time, like Black politics is the class politics. There's no, like you said, there's no one way to talk to Black people, right? There's just a way to get more Americans to your side, right? And that's with just dealing with the issues that affect their lives. If you're dealing with transit, you're dealing with working folks. And we happen to live in a society that has oppressed certain communities so much that if you are just connecting on these levels, guess what? You're going to get there on those other ones too. So there is no, this idea that there needs to be like, well, how do we reach Black people? That is a very DCCC 3 white people in the room question.
Well, listen, I think that I agree with you that the whole how do we reach Black people is a very top-down kind of position to have. But at the same time, we cannot deny that contemporary mainstream Black politics is a politics of containment and a cartel system. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when the South Carolina Democratic primary goes down, Jim Clyburn goes into his phone Rolodex, and he has the phone number of every pastor or every major Black church. He has the phone number of every graduate chapter of every Black fraternity and sorority. He has the phone number of every Black HBCU president and administrator. He has the phone number of all the Black social organizations, the Links, the Freemasons, the Elks, all of those organizations. And those people control the ideological infrastructure of Black communities in South Carolina. They control the ladies' clubs. They control the teachers' unions. They teach the kids. They control the church social meetings. They control the social infrastructure of Black communities. And if we do not become honest about how Black politics, particularly in the South and particularly in other Democratic machine states, works to keep Black politics totally wedded to the corporate center of the Democratic Party, we are not going to be able to effectively introduce a left political discourse to Black people. As many people don't like to hear this, I've never met a political scientist yet who can deny me that this is how Black politics on the electoral level is effectuated every election season. I mean, Angela, you worked in, am I wrong? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
And she's in South Carolina.
And I'm in South Carolina. And, was on the ballot in South Carolina. And the fact that, when I actually talk to people who are workers here, because as y'all know, I'm a truck driver. That's what I do. And so talking to people, like people I worked with who, off the job, let me just go on and say that, because the internet is forever. I did not have these conversations on y'all's property. Okay, now that I've said that, when conversations came up, they were all on board with what our platform was. And people are aware of the fact that they are being fed the Democratic Party, being pushed towards the Democratic Party. There's a whole lot of people who tend to be younger folks that are like, why do we only have these two choices to choose from? Why aren't y'all, if you're on the ballot, why aren't we seeing you? Why aren't y'all billboarded up all over the place? So it also opened the discussion, or opened the space for the fact that, while we're talking about voter suppression, as Howie Hawkins loves to say, party suppression is a form of voter suppression. And people need to know we exist.
But listen, why is it okay, listen, we are Blacks on the left. I'm a member of the Green Party. Some of y'all may not be, but let's be very frank. Some of us are in DSA. Some of us supported Bernie Sanders. Why is it there is no actual conversation about how Black politics really works? The first time, I'm 52 years old, the first time I've ever heard someone admit how Black politics really works was Willie Leggett on a Jacobin interview with Adolph Reed and Cedric Johnson, and I heard him say the same thing less than a month ago on Janice Graham's show. And I'm not trying to be original. He literally said the same thing I'm saying right now. He said this is a cartel system where you have Black political elites use the social infrastructure in Black communities to corral Black votes around the corporate center of the Democratic Party. And he literally said, you have the membership organizations, you have the churches, et cetera, so on, so forth, so on, so forth. No one talks about this. Very few people write about it. Very few people analyze it. And very few people have come up with a strategy to penetrate this reality.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends when you say no one. So, because I mean, when you asked that originally, I was about to say, well, I hear people like who just listed talk about it. And I think more people are getting that hearing. Now, on the other hand, there are people on the left. And again, I always go back to this because it's so ironic. Mostly white leftists that don't want to hear that shit. And I was involved in a DSA event.
Let's talk about that.
I'm just saying, I was involved in a DSA event organizing with Adolph Reed to speak about COVID disparities.
Oh, that was in your hood?
We collaborated with New York.
Oh, damn. Deep State got Paul.
Oh, man. Yeah, come on now.
There
was something like because he was spilling all the tea. Deep State. Oh, here he is.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that, still, I think it's a net positive. I think more people are hearing this and having to confront it. And I think stuff like the Bernie campaign, what is good about it is just because it's practical political experience. And like for a whole generation of people, the Bernie campaign was their first experience having to come against the wall of the machine, whether that's the overall Democratic Party machine or the Black political machine, and what that looks like. And people, there's no better lesson than experience to draw lessons from. So I do think slowly more and more people are confronting this question and how to deal with it. But again, I think many leftists are going down the wrong path of like, the problem is we didn't read Robin DiAngelo 3 times instead of 1 time.
I want to address Paul. Let me address Paul. Paul, I'm going to be, maybe I'm a little cynical. I really don't care. I don't believe that most of the white left takes black politics or black people seriously.
No.
Point blank.
Well, I would agree, but my take on that is they think they're taking it seriously by being as woke as possible. But for me, that is a way of actually showing you're not taking it seriously. I mean, there's a lot I could say there, but I think people think they are, but what they're being told is taking black politics seriously is being like hyper woke on everything, or the Robin DiAngelo. I'm not saying everyone in DSA loves Robin DiAngelo. That's just one example, but a lot of what we talk about on the show of like what is kind of characterized as black politics, even leftists who think they understand what's up or what, how cynical this is, they're searching for like the good kind of woke identity politics. I've had this I don't know if I'm
Robin DiAngelo does open up her talks with a land acknowledgement. So there's always that.
There you go.
Someone wants to know your take on and if you can't talk about it, I understand, the Adolph Reed DSA Afro Socialist Caucus beef.
Oh, well, I mean, that got to the event. I mean, very briefly, I mean, some of you have seen the article. Adolph with someone else wrote, honestly, by Adolph standards, a very mild piece about COVID and racial disparities. And he was saying, all this talk about Black people being disproportionately, affected by COVID, it would be helpful to kind of look at the data along with socioeconomic data. Because when you do that, you're going to find that, of course, Black people that are disproportionately working class may not have as good access to healthcare or disproportionately in essential worker jobs are going to be disproportionately affected. And he's saying there's a danger that when you and you saw this in news reports all the time, it was like, just Black people are disproportionately affected. And it leaves you thinking that, oh, there must be a biological thing going on. And he was kind of just offering a warning that, this can lead down a bad path and give people the impression that this is like a biological thing. It also can lead it to be framed as something that is marginal, meaning, oh, this is only something that affects poor Black people. We don't need to take COVID seriously, like being utilized in the right wing in that way. So that's really all the article said. Again, by Adolph standards, I think it was very mild. And we wanted to do an event about this topic, talking about it based on this article. And this was, I think it was the timing. We planned this event before, but this also, we wanted to do this event. This is while, George Floyd protests were happening very heavily. And so I think the environment was very charged. And, there was just this uproar about having this event, even though it was very clear what the event was about. It was not about denying racial disparities. It was just about parsing through what is causing these disparities. It's not necessarily race as a biological factor causing these disparities. And, you know, people freaked out. And it was, you know, there's nothing else to say. I guarantee you people could not have read the article, because if you read the article, there's no way you could have come away from that thinking this is denying racial disparities. There's just no way. So
I'd like to hear Angela's take on my proposition that I've made earlier, that the white left does not take black politics or black people seriously in a political context. As a Green Party vice presidential candidate, I'd like to hear your reflections.
I have to agree. And if that ruffles people's feathers, it just damn does. I cannot tell you how many brochurists that I've had to put in their place when they are admonishing or reminding me that my lived experience as a Black working class parent, queer person, all of those things that come into my work and my organizing and my politics with me, when they're trying to reduce it just to class. Everything is, you can just fix everything if we just, you know, it's all class. You know, all of these other things that you're talking about that need to be addressed, we don't have time to listen to that. It's only about this. And it's like, no, it's not only about that, which is why, you know, you're not handling your implicit bias, your racism, your classism, your sexism. All of those things are going unchallenged by you, your trans and homophobia.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things are going unchallenged, and you don't have to look at yourself. You don't have to look at what really moves your politics, because you are not doing any self-examination, because you reduce everything to just about class because that's where you're comfortable. Well, fuck your comfort. Fuck your comfort. I'm not here for comfort. Everything, and I've had those discussions with so many people, and I'll be completely transparent. That is a battle that is currently happening within the Green Party. So like y'all were saying in, you know, the chat earlier about, you know, the Green Party got a whole lot going on. Yes, the hell they do. Yes, they do. And you will never hear me push the Green Party as, and I know you know too, Pascal, it ain't a damn utopia. It's a whole lot of people there I want to damn choke, if you want to be honest about it. But it's just like, why are you wasting my time? But at the end of the day, I think that Black leftists, like I said, we're going to have to be bold with our shit and unapologetic about it, like this, and understanding also that a lot of this is pushing back against not just people outside of the left, but also people within it. Not coming into this thinking that, you know, just because we all categorize ourselves as leftists, that we're all of one, we're cut from the same cloth. No, the hell we're not. It's a lot of people that call themselves leftists that are also very, very invested in capitalism, that don't understand why some of this shit is a problem. You call yourself a leftist, but you hate socialists. The fuck is that? So we got a lot of work to do on that. But you know, there are white leftists that are absolutely racist, that are misogynist, that are misogynoirist, that are transphobic. And that's a problem.
Something is like, you know, like you talk about the brochureless, you know, and I would like people, you know, if you're a white person and you're thinking like, wow, why are these Black people attacking me? I'm an ally, right? You know, the thing is, you need to realize that like when the oh hey, we got to go class first, and we need to not worry about some of these race issues, some of these gender issues, some of these LGBTQ issues, right? Those are all distractions, right? No, right? The fact that you brochurists are not addressing your own issues, right, is hampering the movement from being able to organize and coalesce. So if that's not fixed or removed, right, then you're going to continue on with these haphazard attempts at movement building, or just going to be more hiccups, more bumps in the road, right? So understanding, like it is in the service of class for you to ignore the issues concerning marginalized communities.
Well, that's the problem with people. And someone said in the chat that Adolph Reed plays a role in white people seeing this class first thing. And I don't view Adolph Reed in that way, maybe because I believe the person that said that probably has read class notes. But living in this community, right? And also getting to know Touré very fucking well. One thing we talk about daily is fucking racism. We talk about the shit that we deal with daily. You know what I mean? And so it's foolish to think that. Hold on, goddammit.
I mean,
go ahead, Pascal. Oh, what's wrong? Your Wi-Fi's not working again?
Oh.
That's what happens when you interrupt.
Don't do Pascal. Don't do Pascal. I'm here for you.
Don't talk, nigga.
He put on his hood and he thought he got tough. That's what he was. No, I think that because I'm breaking up.
We can just talk.
I said I think because Reed challenges notions of unitary black identity and how it works in terms of the class makeup of black politics, he makes certain people, black and white, uncomfortable because he complicates black collective issues and identity and the notion of black collective political representation, and it gets people to make him think he's a class reductionist or whatever. And he's really hard. He's unforgiving. He's kind of brutal. I don't think he denies racism. I just think that a lot of people get turned off by his tone. I appreciate his tone, but hey, it's a personal thing. And
I'll say, I mean, and again, like, look, my experience on the left is not universal. I've been in Philly, and that is what it is. But I have not heard, I don't hear that often, honestly, a white leftist like being so blatantly class reductionist. If anything, my bigger issue on the left that I've seen is that most of the white people on the left are so kind of like in their head about race that they end up tokenizing people of color. But I see it less of a reflection of class reductionism as more of like being, I don't know, they've just gotten too fucked up in their head about race, and they are so hyper focused on it all the time that it leads to bad tokenism. Again, I know people have different experiences, but like I just don't encounter class reductionism.
This is my question. What class reductionist argument did Reed make? Because you can't say, well, I didn't say saying class reductionist is the same as saying he doesn't say racism exists. So what the fuck are you saying? When you say Reed makes the class reductionist argument, what is that argument? I want to know what argument he made where you were like, no, nigga, you're wrong.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, in Adolph's work, there is a high degree of nuance that I honestly think people just miss a lot. And I mean, whatever, maybe you could say he should write clearer or something, but
time out, Paul. Is this bullshit, Pascal?
I read that. Look, in an interview Adolph Reed with Nathan Robinson, he said the racial wealth gap would disappear in 30 years if the income gap were neutralized. I watched that interview. I don't think he said the racial wealth gap would disappear. I think he's making the argument that the best way to address the racial wealth gap would be to close the gap in wages between blacks and whites. I don't think he was making the argument that it would disappear.
He's drawn on statistics about how when you really zero in on the wealth gap, it's mostly having to do with the most upper class.
Yeah, the wealth gap is being the top 10% of both segments of society. And I think his larger argument is that using racial wealth gap data as the means of creating economic equity in a capitalist society is not the best or most effective way to do so, because it ends up bringing down capitalist solutions. In other words, there's a reason why Jamie Dimon likes to talk about the racial wealth gap, because he can create a solution that doesn't challenge his position as a capitalist. Right. I mean, listen, MJ says that I was wrong. I'm willing. That's the way I would recall it. I mean, maybe you might be right. If he said that that it would totally neutralize the racial wealth gap in 30 years, I would disagree with him. I don't think simply equalizing the income gap over 30 years will make the racial wealth gap disappear. And my argument would be is that because the racial wealth gap between the top 10% are so ridiculously, insanely huge that, frankly, nothing would make it disappear unless you just chop off 50% of the wealth of the top 10% and give it to the top 10% of Black people.
I think my problem is anytime you hear Negroes talk about some sort of like class distinctions, then there's always says, well, there's a class reductionist argument in there.
But that's the thing is like it's just
it gets under my skin to a certain point because it's like
my position. This is my whole thing, right?
Argument like who are you fighting for? I guess that's
my position. Is that whenever they come in with the class reductionists, I ask them one simple question: what problem do Black people have that's not rooted in political economy? Show me one. Show me one problem that's not rooted in political economy.
Weeks ago, Pascal, you asked me a question of like, if there was no power behind it, would you care? Right? If a white person is racist to you, if there's no power behind it, would you care? And the answer is like maybe a little bit, but a whole lot less than what we are forced to care. Right? What are the results of those feelings? People just delineating the difference between racism and having a prejudice against someone who of a certain race, right? Like what are the different power structures, all this fucking shit. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're saying. I think, or at least like, I don't necessarily disagree, like that's at the end of the day, there is more power in the class class divisions than there is in the racial divisions, right? And like one leads on to another, one informs another, and like you just got to be aware of both. Like that's.
I'm not a either or race or class person because, to me, race is a construct in capitalism. Period. That the racism in America disproportionately relegate Black people to the reserve army of labor and all of the negative social consequences that come with that. That is all. That's it. And to the point that you're making, Jason, and I ask this all the time, if white people did not have the economic, material, or ideological capacity to affect your life in any way, or your self-image in any way, would you care that they were racist? Personally, I wouldn't give a damn.
I've said this before, I think, but I would love to do a game where we put up quotes from people like A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin, but don't say they said it and let people freak out at how class reductionist they seem. Because I think people would really be shocked, that figures who were so central to the civil rights movement advanced stuff that, at that time was actually very normal to say, but now if someone like Adolph Reed says it, he gets jumped on.
I'll be very frank with you. The reason why I think people who are on the left or socialists or Black leftists are being called class reductionists is because the liberal establishment is so interested in coddling racial grievance discourse today to neutralize class-based social remedies. And anytime you challenge that hustle, you're going to be called a class reductionist.
Thank you.
And the problem is, I think too many people of the left fall into the trap and join in the chorus.
Oh, here it comes. Median white family household in Boston is over $250,000. For Black families, it's $8. That's from a 2015 Federal Reserve report. Would a class-only politics address this? Well, that's the median,
which is the average.
What's the average?
That's the problem.
That's $250,000. So you're gonna say that if I just walk up to a white person in Boston, I'm gonna meet a dude that makes $250,000? I'm talking away from fucking Cambridge. Right. No, real talk. That's the average white guy in Boston makes a quarter fucking mil, or there's a lot of fucking millionaires in Boston.
Yeah, what's the mean? That's the better question.
And what's amazing to me
you're better than that.
that doesn't get emphasized.
I gotta talk to you like the fucking strippers now. You're better than that.
Oh, come on. Don't hate on it. Don't hate on it.
A former stripper, be gentle.
Yeah, don't.
That's the joke we use about the dudes at the strip club.
But you know what's amazing about, and this is, I think, how you can see how, like Pascal said,
I
like,
know
why,
what an average means. Sorry.
like why someone like Jamie Dimon is interested in the racial wealth gap, but like when they talk about it, it's always amazing to me when talking about Black wealth, they don't bring up public sector employment, where it is an empirical fact that the greatest factor mitigating Black poverty throughout history has been public sector employment, which is disproportionately Black workers are in the public sector, and these are jobs that are disproportionately unionized and have good job stability and a good wage. And you can look at the data. Black public sector workers disproportionately own homes, have more wealth than private sector counterparts, period. It is a fact. But again, so it's like, yeah, I think if we, you know, create robust public sector employment, I think that's going to go a long way towards addressing. Again, I'm not saying it's going to solve every problem in the world. I'll quote Hillary Clinton.
My question is,
I'll quote Hillary Clinton.
Why bring up this statistic? You're going to tell me what I know, what I fucking don't know.
Let me ask you a question.
With numbers all throughout my 20s working in fucking finance.
The funniest thing
hold on. You're going to have the audacity
of blackness
to tell me, oh, you don't know what means. Why bring up the statistic if it's bullshit?
First of all, as someone who lived in Boston, as Janice Graham did, let me tell you why I know why this is. Because first of all, the statistic is Black people who live in Boston. Number one, if you know anything about Boston and Black Boston, the Black people who live in Boston don't live in Boston proper. They live in the suburbs. It's ironic to me that you talk about how broke Black people are in Boston when you just take a ride up to Martha's Vineyard and they all got $1 million homes. It's really incredible. The whole study is not based on the actual political geographic reality of where Black life economically is spread in Boston. Janice Graham lived in the Boston metro area. She had a lot more than $8. Ask her if she was in the $8 cohort. I don't think so. Because the whole scam of this racial wealth gap nonsense is like all white people are rich and all the Black folk is broke.
But you can't tell that to nobody. You can't tell that to nobody.
And it's really disturbing because, and I didn't catch on to this, I think, until later in the 2020 Bernie campaign. Over and over, more and more, I realized, wow, the racial wealth gap thing kept being brought up as the reason not to support Bernie. And in many cases, to support Warren over Bernie. And that's when I really started to think like, damn, something is messed up here because this is being weaponized in a very damaging. Again, I'm not saying anyone who talks about the racial wealth gap is reactionary. I'm not trying to say that, but I was saying it was being weaponized in a really, really bad way during the Bernie campaign. So it should just give us some pause about talking, you know, how this is being used.
Yeah, this is where though it's like I think, you know, and I'm gonna bring in our guests, you know, who we've been talking over for quite some time now. Because in some sense, like it has to be both. Nothing that Angela listed when he said this is my platform. Not one thing mentioned Black people. And so how, like, obviously both things can exist. And like, and that's the thing too, is like maybe this conversation of people who are trying to put on this class reductionist role, it may be not like existing too much. It
pisses me off because it's like, look, man, I live in Oakland and where I'm staying at right now is very different than where I was staying at before. And I could walk up the street, across the street, and there's a lot of Negroes with good money where I'm staying at now. Where I'm staying at before, I'll see the $8 in wealth, whatever the fuck that means. When you start to ask people to define what that means, then they start to have a fucking problem with it. But when cats like this jump up like getting all bent out of shape, it's like, look, motherfucker, you talking about real shit. This is real people's lives that we really get fucked with about. You're not going to get fucked with about it because if you're a white dude that's fucking righteous talking about it's all about white supremacy, then hella motherfuckers love you. fucking love you. When you say, I don't, you know what? I have my critiques about that shit. Well,
I always love the fact that no one ever talks about how the actual racial wealth gap internally within blacks is almost as bad as it is between blacks and whites in many areas. And we want to talk about racial wealth gaps.
But that's what I'm saying though, right? Is because I don't think anyone using Angela as an example is like no one looks at Angela and says like, oh well, either she is a race reductionist because she comes in and corrects some white dude that's speaking out of line, or also not a class reductionist because nothing in the actual policy platform specifically says, hey, this is just for black people. Because in the end, it does no benefit to the left or just to the humanity that we are trying to improve to work along either of those lines. We need to just understand and move in with the understanding that, yeah, like the class definition, that capital will utilize race. And these are things so entrenched in the United States that like it's almost no fucking point in having the argument differently, right? Of just saying, hey, what are we going towards, right? A structure of healthcare that if your heart's pumping, we want to help you free at charge when you come in the door. You know, education, same way. Jobs guarantee, make it simpler, right? And that's where the thing is, where you say, oh, hey, like I could be called a class reductionist because I'm just saying, hey, if you make these things universal, it will solve a lot of the issues. You still will have racial problems, right? The person who's actually delivering these goods and services will still find a way to be an asshole to a black person if this person is racist. The systematic ability for that person to do so will be lessened. And so
the question I always ask is that if 65% of your labor were sharecroppers or domestic workers until 1965, and 55% of your quote unquote community lived below the poverty line until 1959, why are you shocked that there are more black people who are poor than white people? How is that shocking? It's not shocking. The racial wealth course is very simple. It's about trying to get black people to believe that they can create equity in capitalism without challenging capitalism.
Be a homeowner. You want to get out of this racial wealth gap? Be a homeowner. That's what's going on in Evanston, Illinois.
And what it will end up becoming is a wealth transfer to the black middle class, just like reparations will be a wealth transfer to the black middle class. What is that? What is the Evanston plan? The Evanston plan is a wealth transfer to the black middle class. That's all it is.
Wrapped in reparations.
Wrapped in reparations. So that's I don't know. I don't know if you guys get a little worked up about shit like.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem too. We get into a thing of semantics because, you know, class reductionism means different things to different people. Reparations does. And then, you know, once you kind of go down the like semantics rabbit hole, these they get to be unproductive conversations. But, you know, I think I was watching, I think Adolf did a thing with Jared Ball and, you know, and Adolf said that it's not really race first or class first, I'm capitalism first. And I think that kind of gets back to Pascal's thing, and what he was saying in that was not I'm class first. What he was saying was race's role in capitalism first. So yeah, I think broadly speaking, I think, you know, it's unfair to paint someone like Adolf or Touré as class first. You know, I think there's just so much more nuance to that. But I understand, you know, in the Twitter world, it's very hard to like have a nuanced, you know, discussion around that kind of thing. You know,
it's more about getting windmill dunks and retweets.
That's all. At the end of the day, that's all it's about. And I think that's why I get so mad.
My position. And by the way, I had a political scientist literally try to tell me black people don't know nothing about political economy. I was like, do black people pay bills? What does that mean? This guy literally tried to tell me black people don't have nothing to do with political economy. I was like, do black people pay light bills? This is a political scientist.
What does that mean? What does that mean? What does
Black people don't know nothing about no economy. This is a political scientist literally told me this.
That's fucked up.
I mean, like Van Jones would be mad at this dude.
When you have liberal, neoliberal black folk.
No. You got something to say, Angela?
I'm putting on my church finger.
Oh.
No, the question that you just put in the chat about trans medical procedures would they be a red line under a national health service? Mm-hmm. I can actually speak, I can answer that, what it would be under the Medicare for All program that we pushed as the Green Party. It would not be a red line. Those procedures are considered medically necessary and would be covered under Medicare for All, the way that we have it written.
Isn't it not covered in the UK, or it wasn't covered in the UK at one time? I'm not sure. If anyone in the UK is watching, they can answer that question. I honestly don't know.
I know that people in our community call the UK Turf Island, so I can't assume that.
I know they're having a bit of an issue over the last few years about that shit.
But that's which is something. Moving on, I think like
covered in the
that's
UK.
Important is it's like there's also like there's a big difference between coverage and where the existing healthcare is and where it's going. Thinking of Serena Williams when she had to advocate for herself when she was pregnant to save her own life, and like the fact is like she is monumentally wealthy, right? Like insanely wealthy, but still, right? Like when you're just dealing with a healthcare system that does not give a shit about you, bad things can still happen. So that's something where it's like, for me, just being like like more of like put it on the wonk hat is where do we go looking forward? Because the healthcare for trans non-binary folks may not be at its wherever it is optimal in our system. It may not be where it needs to go. So it's not just expanding it for everyone, but also having just like a no shit direct objective to make sure that we will continue to improve. Which I think something can be built in. Just that's how the program should run, right? If you're just talking about the health of people. But I think something that would be lacking if we went to, national healthcare tomorrow, that would be something that I think would be lacking.
Depending on who implemented it.
Yeah.
I think, as long as you are not dealing with, and there was a question in the chat earlier for all of us about, the weight that moralistic arguments, and I'm paraphrasing it because I can't see it anymore. Where does this idea of morality fall, with these issues? And I think that as long as you have people who are, like you're saying, Marcus, who would administer this as what is good for people and keep your fucking religious beliefs and all this other bullshit the fuck out of the question, because don't nobody give a shit what you believe. We don't care what is good for people as far as administering healthcare. How do you keep people healthy and safe and make sure that they are cared for? Keep all of the morality out of that. I think if we have people who would administer in that way, I think we could have the health service. It's not going to be utopia. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm walking around with like flowers circling around my head thinking this is the way this shit was work. I'm not that stupid. And I'm also a Capricorn, so ain't nothing nice out here. Fuck that. I mean, there's that. There's nothing nice.
Yeah.
It's always going to rain.
Right. I think there's a difference between, I think we could imagine a housing program that could be like damn near perfect, right? You could imagine a housing program that's like, okay, is it shit 10 out of 10? No, but it's like running water, heat's on, lights on for everybody. Like that's something
vermin.
Like we could, no roaches, no nothing. That's something we could easily figure out. Healthcare, and I say education as well. those are two things that they become a little bit tricky, you know, as simple as far as, hey, more schools, better paid teachers, you know, making sure kids are fed morning, evening, and night on their way, you know, all those things.
Community schools model.
Yeah, wait, but no, but that's the thing. It's like, but that's what I love. And Jason and I, we talk about restorative justice, you know, and it might be a similar thing. It's not just like an answer, it's a practice, right? And I think healthcare, education, those are practices that we need to have more good, solid principles as we move forward, and not necessarily that, hey, this is black and white and this is what we're doing. But also to locally focus on what the localities and the communities want.
This brings to mind, I haven't seen this yet. I've heard great things about the documentary, The Power to Heal, which talks about the connection between the fight for Medicare and the civil rights movement. And what someone told me they found interesting was, you know, basically these civil rights activists, once Medicare program was established, they kind of like entered into it as activists to make sure Medicare was being implemented equally, you know, and it was applying, you know, as equal as possible across the board. And I think that's just something interesting to think about. Like if the left grew strong enough to implement something like the NHS here, our cadre should be the people who are, you know, running the NHS system, you know, like, and I think other places that are more advanced than we are, they can talk in those terms of like, not only do we have a big political party, we could send our cadre into positions to make sure we're doing these things in the right way. I mean, we're very far from that point, but I've heard amazing things about that documentary, The Power to Heal. It's a little hard to get, but I'm trying to see it myself. Did I just break the internet or something?
No,
we're just nodding, man. You say something real, and it's just like everyone's got nod.
This was agreement.
Okay, right.
I don't know. I don't know what this cat's point was with median wealth thing, and apparently niggas is broke, and the world ends around broke niggas, I guess. So there you go. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I think enough has been said about
Jason's about to lose some sleep.
Yeah, well, I just don't like it, man. It's really oversimplifying like real ass fucking problems, and you guys are right. It really became part of a major discourse during the Bernie campaign, and it's just something that a lot of people love to lean on. And I'll just keep my fucking.
That's really easily explained.
I think we also like quick fixes and easy answers in this country. We want it to go. We don't want to dig for substance. We just want something that sounds really good. Like, okay, can I handle this in 5 minutes? Okay, fine. Next thing. We don't want to dig into shit like it's not that goddamn simple. You got two people who know Boston sitting on here giving y'all like answers to this stuff. It's like, dude, stop. You know, these people are telling you what it is. So quit. We want these really facile ways of getting at things, and I would say, you know, and I say it all the time, that is the problem with where we are as a country, because we don't like to look at root causes. We don't like to dig into how we got here, because the shit is ugly and it's complicated and it's messy and it's fucked up and it's really depressing. And you know, these things are not that simple. You can't just it's not as simple as, okay, black people only make this, y'all make that. If we do this one thing, then everything's great. It's not that simple.
Oh damn.
Because and I don't know if Angela dealt with that, like just dealing with their transportation history, but I remember dealing with some stuff with Amtrak up here, and it's like, well, oh, hey, we have this one problem. And I was like, well, why? This doesn't make sense. Why this should be a problem? Why is this a problem? Oh, and it leads to this other thing. And it leads to this other thing. It leads to this other thing. And it always goes back to basically the U.S. government utilized its population to do some research and development or build some shit, and then we sold it off. And then we're paying for the repercussions of doing those things down the line, right? our rail system, our highways, the internet, and the fact that we do not have broadband on every inch of this. Like the internet, that should have been tucked underneath the postal service.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
That should have been on the postal service.
And dude,
I could do a whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right, dude.
Well,
and the thing is, Ozzy, you know, when you mentioned the amount of Black people who work and actually have upward mobility because of governmental programs, right. USPS is bam, top of the line for one of those, and for veterans too. Thank you, USPS, for helping my brothers and sisters in arms who get to sit in the back room and not bother nobody. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't even know where I'm going now. I'm just so angry.
Hashtag free the post office. Hashtag
shout out mental health.
Question for Angela: since we're stuck with having to have a Department of Transportation for a while, who would be your ideal pick Secretary of Transportation?
Well, it's already Pete.
I mean, hold on, he's asking Angela. Angela, damn, you sound like Marcus.
No, I was actually. I mean, you're right. I just. That's a good question. Who I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, and you know, y'all fought me for this if you like. Who is heavily invested in true green, not greenwashing, but green infrastructure, who is a rank and file old school union supporter, who is concerned with what is best for growing our transportation system in a way that is healthy for within ecological limits. I can't, and I don't know who Sarah Nelson is. I ain't even gonna lie. So, you know, for me, that would be somebody that would be perfect for that. Somebody who thinks in those ways.
Well, and I would disagree on Sarah Nelson, actually, because she is the head of
Flight Attendants
Union, which absolutely important for transport, but I think there's like some of the things that even Angela was applying that might be like out of, you know, her expertise, because when I'm thinking of like someone that would be good for transportation, it'd be someone that would like that, maybe an engineer, you know, like someone that understands huge big technologies that are gonna have to span our nation multiple times, you know, and like someone that's obviously invested in union, invested in real green stuff, but that's
lived in other countries to see, you know, and has an open mind, that you've watched how green transit, you know, particularly thinking of mass transit, because that's my thing, you know. I want to operate a high-speed train because that shit's sexy as fuck.
Is there someone from Japan we could ask?
I you know, there was things, you know, how do you who can bring that in with them?
Right.
You want to drive one, Angela?
Yes, I've been a CDL operator. I've held a CDL license for the last 20 years. This is what I dropped out of college to do. I drive big shit, and I love it. I feel like a big kid in my truck. So.
How much are you worried about artificial intelligence and the driverless truck phenomenon?
I think it's absolutely. I have layers of concerns about this. First off, we have a highly safety sensitive job. You cannot get a computer to do what I do. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Also, the implications of creating yet another specialized situation where only people who are trained to work on these self-driving vehicles will have work. You're creating a whole pool of people who are looking to be potentially displaced and therefore looked at as expendable, more than we already are looked at as expendable. There's no, I don't see anything I have no good feelings about that at all. Not at all.
And I've heard things as like as a technological aspect of it, it's like impossible without upgrading every single road.
Right.
Because it's not about the car being automated. It's about the fact that every other vehicle on the road is not.
Right.
And you think about these little back ass South Carolina, these little back ass dirt roads that I'm paving, that we go in, we dig it up from like the ground up and then lay new stuff on top of that. And you're going to send a driverless truck in a road that's yay wide. You got 2 ditches on either side to retain water or to drain off the water. And you're going to get a computer to do that? Fuck y'all.
Yeah, no, and I think too, at the end of the day, what people are actually talking about are just efficiencies. And for one thing, in a capitalist system, 100% of the efficiencies in the market go to the top. And if we were talking about a society where we no longer rely so heavily, right? Because like you say, hey, if you get high-speed rail across this nation, you might take down the amount of truck drivers that are doing long haul runs, maybe. But as Angela is describing, it's like once you get from the warehouse to where actually the delivery is going, no, it's just not going to fucking work. And at the end of the day, if those efficiencies were then built in, right? So truck drivers don't have to go so many long distances, right? It's just, I got to spend my day going boom, 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 boom. And then I get to be back home.
Up.
Right. Yeah.
Don't decrease their wages.
That's when you just say, hey, we've found an efficiency until all boats get raised, right? All because the tide is now raised. But that's not how things have worked in the past and would work under the same system.
And this to me is where, the importance of having, I mean, not that it all comes down to the leadership, but union leaders with a vision, with this kind of vision, because there was actually one of the leaders of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Larry Hanley, who recently passed away, but he was someone that had a vision of, uniting with public transit riders and building coalitions with them. And I think he would be the type of person that would see the vision, like they should be on the forefront. They should be preempting this by saying, we have a proposal for efficiency that is pro-worker, that, like Angela said, you could make efficiency without decreasing people's wages and all that sort of thing. And I think there's some potential there for transit unions to be involved in like the Green New Deal and things like that. I think it'll be a battleground. Just recently in Philly, we had, SEPTA, our transit agency, wanted to upgrade our trolleys that we still use and build a new trolley depot. And Amazon, it looks like, is going to outbid them for an Amazon facility. So like now, instead of not only having the public transit aspect, but, creating more unionized jobs, if Amazon wins out, now you're just creating a warehouse with workers making $15 an hour at most. But that's a battleground I think, the left should be fighting on around stuff like that.
And I have to say it, I served, when I was legislative director, Larry Hanley was the international president for the Amalgamated.
I was
Transit
wondering
Union.
if you knew him. Yeah.
Proud member of Amalgamate,
Nice.
Former member of ATU Local 998. I got it tattooed on my arm.
Say what you
Fun fact about him, really quick, because he's transitioned. He was watching what was happening with the Occupy movement, and ATU under his leadership was one of the first labor unions to jump in with Occupy in solidarity. And, us being part of the Wisconsin uprising was a part of that, and the shit that we were stirring up and getting involved in and getting our members involved in. So, big love, rest in love and power to Larry Hanley. They don't make them like that no more.
Right. And we were probably at the Labor Notes conference together. Did you ever go to those, Angela?
In Chicago, yes.
Okay, yeah. So that's when I heard Larry Hanley speak. I mean, that's kind of how I know Howie Hawkins too, by the way, with TDU and all that stuff. So,
all your pinko leftist black people.
Well, you don't know about that, Pascal. You're nationalist.
Yeah, he's there.
You didn't know that? You didn't know that? He's got.
I'm going to get my markers
about the unions.
Captain Crunch hat
shit right off, and then he just.
Pascal wants to be the new, transit agency head. He doesn't want to be a union person.
Marcus Garvis's hat was the reason actually that I wanted to like him so much. You know, I kept like reading in and like, man, like he's not just like there's got to be some more good there, like something I can hang my hat on. And like, nah, man,
aesthetics matter.
Aesthetics do matter.
I mean, with me, Phil Randolph, those suits are so sharp, man. The press, that's what got me with Phil Randolph. But
again, that's a great movie. I gotta shout out Robert Townsend. I actually tried to send a message to Robert Townsend to come on the show because there's a lot of his work that I actually appreciate, and Hollywood Shuffle is still one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
And that's the great quote. There's always work at the post office.
There's always work at the post office.
It's a very political statement.
Or a winky dinky dog.
Winky. We need an Eddie Murphy tag. I don't know. Genius.
Look at this chat. Pascal wears capri pants and sandals. You ever catch that?
I'm getting all kinds of grief because I said,
Paul, are you familiar with the show The Boondocks?
Oh yeah, of course.
So there is a.
Come on, I'm not like 10 years old. Like, come on now.
There's a scene from The Boondocks where Huey Freeman goes back to Chicago, where he's supposed to be from, and a good friend of him is now friends with a Hotep type character that says, "Oh, you're the revolutionary Huey Freeman. Well, where's your poems? Where's your sandals? Where's your capris?"
My favorite part about that show was when the white high school teacher kept saying Harambe.
Yes.
Oh man, that gets me right.
I think my favorite part was when if they had like done the thing of like Martin Luther King wasn't dead, he was just in a coma.
Oh, that pissed a lot of people off.
They won a Peabody for that, I believe. They won some sort of award for that.
Yeah,
a lot of people were pissed off about that.
Oh man, I mean, I think they even talk about him being a socialist, right? Because he goes on like a Bill O'Reilly type show.
Magruder? You know, it's funny because I remember, not to date myself because everyone here thinks I'm geriatric. I remember I used to follow the Boondocks quick strip before the cartoon. Y'all don't remember. The comic strip was way more radical than the cartoon, man, and it had better politics too.
Well, that was why Magruder left the show. MJ is saying it went downhill season 3. I believe season 3 was the year that he leaves, and Comedy Central or Adult Swim tries to do it on their own. They got to keep the cast, but his politics that he fought for. I mean, keep in mind, I believe the one episode that they actually wouldn't air was either the Tyler Perry episode or the BET episode. I want to say it was the BET episode where he just goes in on BET to no end. And like Viacom,
I think it's a 2 or 3 parter actually.
Well, you know, Viacom owned all that shit. And they're like, no, you're not airing this. So there's a lot of stuff that he had to make like significant edits to. And so then he goes off and does that Black Jesus show, which I also thought was pretty fucking funny.
I have a young socialist black woman comrade friend. She's young, she's in grad school. She tried to debate with me that she said the Boondocks is reactionary respectability politics and it's not good. I was like, ooh, wow. I was like, she's a little too woke for herself. She was like, it's reactionary respectability politics. It's terrible. I was like, damn, ow.
Where's the respectability politics in the Boondocks?
I guess maybe Uncle Russ. I don't know.
Uncle Ruckus? Yeah, where exactly?
I mean, is grandpa moving to the nice neighborhood? I mean, is that
a pimp named Slickback?
It's like a Tribe Called Quest. Just say the whole thing.
Say it with me now.
Believe it or not, I do remember the comic strips in the newspaper. I do remember reading those.
Yeah, they sound like from the 20s.
I'm trying to remember the 3rd season. All I remember about that, I remember the Warner
The
Herzog.
Boondocks used to come on the motion picture screen back in my day.
The post office used to deliver it.
Yeah, the milk right after the milkman would come, get the comic strip out.
You know,
Langston Hughes wrote a poem about it.
You know you're old if you remember watching TV before cable.
We're old, and I'm okay with that. I remember Select TV while y'all fucking around. Okay. That shit that was what, circa 1979, 1980?
By the way, Angela, I hear that you're a house music fan. Shout out to people who are old enough to remember house music. Thank you very much.
I wanted to wake up early this morning and make a house music beat, but I'm in the middle of doing this music project that I told Pascal about, and it's been just so fucking depressing.
Are you talking about my theme song?
They don't even know what house music is.
I didn't know you liked house music, Pascal. Oh my God.
Come on. Paradise Garage. I love house music.
House is life. I mean, being young and going to the club on somebody else's ID, and that was like the closest I get to like religious experience. Like you talking about love.
Yeah, the house.
Love.
I mean, we can't play copyrighted music here, but I was about to send Jason some tracks and be like,
it's frustrating. How do you guys get away with it on Jacobin, Paul? Or did you guys, someone made that music for you guys?
I think someone made that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
was asking about Frankie Knuckles.
Wait, Paul, are you admitting that you're just stealing people's labor? Is that what's are we getting a scoop right here? Jacobin is taking artists labor and stealing it for their YouTube channel. Is that?
I think someone made it for us. I have no control over the matter. I don't know anything.
Interesting.
I'm a worker at Jacobin.
You know who had good intro and break music, but it was copyrighted music. I don't know how he got away with it. It was Michael Brooks. I was listening to a show. He had some Wu-Tang on there. I was like, how does this happen?
Napoleon the Legend made his
yeah. I think for certain songs, if you ask the artist, hey, can I use this song, and they say yes, you're good.
Yeah. That's what I think is happening at Jacobin. Yeah. Ask Kale Brooks. He's the boss.
Look, next week we have, speaking of music, Napoleon the Legend is going to be our guest next week, and I wanted to talk about. Damn, Marcus just left. You got hip hop?
No, Napoleon, I'm out.
Yeah, no, fuck that old light skinned nigga in his bald head, and hoodie wearing ass nigga. Oh, French speaking ass.
French speaking, moving picture ass.
Fuck you think he is? Nigga, I'm Marcus. Marcus, why you get up and leave like that?
You didn't say excuse me. You just got up. And
he got
up. No podcast etiquette, man. No podcast etiquette.
He was like, y'all was talking. He wasn't trying to.
He wasn't trying to fuck. Hey, Marcus, Napoleon the Legend is coming on the show.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Okay,
that's what's up.
Like, fuck him.
No, I was like, hell yeah. And then, my partner needed me. So
okay. I got you. Okay. So
I was thinking about shooting him a message to see if I could get him on a Tuesday.
Well, he's in a different country. So the Tuesday actually might work for him because that's earlier. But Saturday he's coming on, and I wanted to talk about hip hop and the politics of hip hop. And what else did you guys want to talk about with a real rapper?
Wow. Are we gonna have This Is Revolution hip hop conversation with?
Yeah, This Is Revolution hip hop conversation. I'm assuming that you young colored folks listen to hip hop
a little bit.
I'm kind of shaky on Paul.
I think
he looks like a pure classical music guy.
Oh, that's fucked up. He got a do-rag in the back he had to take down because he didn't want to know.
I love all kinds of music, right? Don't look at me like that, Pascal.
You listen to rap at all, Paul?
Yeah.
You listen to
I would love to talk to him about the what we were just even with athletes about this, the whole black business thing, black business owner, that.
What I'm actually curious is that like where.
And Angela, you're free to come, if you can come back next week, if you're down to come back next week and talk hip hop with us. First
of all, I really want to say how much I appreciate Angela being on her show. I think she brings a certain balance to all you overly testosterone charged young men. I like her insights. Her charm is very welcome. I've been saying for a long time we need to have more sisters on the show. Jason's been fighting me tooth and nail on this issue. I'm just saying.
Having Angela on the show?
Having more
Or black
sisters
women?
on the show.
No, I'm not fighting tooth and nail. Do you know how hard it is to get these young negresses to want to come on the show?
Oh, okay. So maybe if you didn't,
So it's their fault. So now you're putting it on them.
Yes, I'm victim.
I can defend Jason on that because after the campaign, I didn't want to talk to nobody about nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, leave me the fuck alone, the whole world. But because Jason is a friend, and because this is a podcast I love very much and have the utmost
every time
respect.
she says that, she makes my heart all like warm and fuzzy, man. It's like, wow.
I mean, I am a stan. Y'all keep me company in my truck every week when I'm at work and give me things to yell at the radio and chew on and all this other good stuff. So like, I'm not blowing y'all's head up when I say that. I am a stan of this podcast.
I get messages about the show that you were on. Angela was on the show, and I like to ask people when I do the audio podcast, because I don't have any comments and it's just me and another person. First of all, I just like to ask people about where they're from. I think where people's origins are very interesting. I've been around a lot of places, and so I love to hear about people's backstories. And Angela and I got into a story. She's from Milwaukee. And we got into it about, Milwaukee and its history, and it is a show that's hard for me to listen to because I can't even listen to it without tearing up a little bit because it just got so deep and emotional.
Let me tell you something about Milwaukee, right? It wasn't until my adult years that I learned Milwaukee was so racially jacked up. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, this is the power of media and propaganda. I remember the first time I met a black person from Milwaukee and they schooled me to how bad it was. I was like, damn, I thought Milwaukee was wonderful. I used to watch Happy Days when I was a kid, and I was like,
and I hear that. That is the first thing. First thing people say is black people in Wisconsin? And I'm like, I say Wisconsin. That ought to tell you something.
Say, yeah, they all in Milwaukee.
Well, to be honest, I mean, Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha, and the further north you go in the state, we all in prisons. So, I mean, there's that. And, I was liking it.
Like 3 black people in Green Bay.
Quick when you don't, the powdered Nestle quick when you don't mix it up right.
Oh,
all the black is at the bottom and it get whiter as it go up. That's Wisconsin.
God damn.
You say when? Well, I it's funny. The only people I know from Milwaukee are colored people.
We out here, man.
Yeah, well, the whites are staying and pushing. Like that's the white people in Milwaukee. That's the goal. The only people leaving is black people.
A good friend of mine, friend of show, Conan Neutron, actually, Pascal, moved to Milwaukee. And part of the reason why part of it was a job, but another part of it was because he really wanted to get involved in Milwaukee and Wisconsin politics because he felt that was going to be a center of a lot of important political fights, especially labor-related fights.
But no, I mean, because I actually applied to University of Wisconsin Law School. I was thinking about going out there, and the image that they sell is like, oh, it's a progressive, kind of like, the Midwestern, white progressive, blah, blah, blah. And I have a buddy of mine who's a lawyer. He went to Wisconsin. He's from Milwaukee. He was like, yo, man, it's a racist ass town. And I was like, dude, I lived in Boston. You can't tell me it was as bad as Boston. He started telling me stories. I was like, Boston is Shangri-La, man. Damn.
It's the most segregated city in America, or was. I don't know if another city has taken it over. Milwaukee had a socialist mayor.
Which this, is going to kind of brings me back to politics and kind of how people talk to people, specifically black people. Because that's the thing is that like, it's still prevalent. Like, and when people talk about, or politicians, when they start talking about going to the heart of America, they're talking about Wisconsin, but they're not talking about black people, and
we
I don't know.
The people.
Well, I know, maybe touch on that before you go.
About talking about the heart
like politics, just dealing with communities as literally just putting monoliths on communities and it being bullshit.
Y'all know what it is. Like, and yes, Jeremy, Milwaukee was where the term sewer socialism came from. And it is a very socialist, has a very long socialist history. So you're absolutely right. And when I ran in 2014, I ran for Milwaukee County Sheriff as a socialist, continuing that history. So there's that. But what you were just saying, Marcus, you're absolutely right. And you know what it is. Like when you want to pander to the Midwest, the heart of the country, the breadbasket, the dairy, you're not thinking about us, which is why it's always a shock, for people like in the South who don't know that we up there. They're always surprised to hear, you're not from Chicago. They get that part, but when we're talking about the Midwest, we're not talking in popular imagery. We're not talking about the cities of the Midwest. We're not talking about the people who are in the industrial centers of the Midwest. There's this bucolic image that's put out about this wholesome Nordic, pig farm, whomever. And it's like, nah, bruh.
And even when they talk about the industrial Midwest, for a lot of people, that's like where that's the white working class is the Midwest, not realizing that, so many Black workers were in the Midwest, we're part of those unions that were built out there.
Well, we've been going for 3 hours. This is the free show. So thank you everybody for the super chats. Thank you guys for all tuning in. Thank you, Paul, Angela, Marcus.
You gotta come back again. I need you here to balance out these.
There's an open, Angela. There's an open invitation out next week, just for shits and giggles. I'll send you the link.
Please do, because if they don't make me work, I'll be here.
Next week, I'll put this away. I won't have this out next week.
Do your thing.
Do your thing. I get it. Banging is a lifestyle. So,
Right.
You can have the whole ski mask on next time.
Right.
I support you in whatever you do.
Thank you. That's
speak your truth, King. Speak your truth.
Because we have to get into somebody want to know about you running for sheriff as a socialist.
Man, look,
so
that's a whole nother story.
Great job stories. I like Angela.
Oh my God, I feel like I gotta go star on my day.
I told you Angela was I can't curse now. I told you.
Hi, baby.
Yes.
What you told me she like house music? I know she was gonna be cool.
I love house music. House music is, and shout out to Black Coffee for his newest album. What is it? Subconsciously, it is from top to bottom. It's a bop. Y'all want it. Just came out.
All right. So thank you guys very much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Marcus. Of course, thank you to my wonderful, extremely intelligent, best writer in the world, Pascal Robert, co-host. Thank you, John, for monitoring the chat. Thank you guys for participating in the chat. Even when it gets heated, I appreciate y'all. I just want you to know that. MJ, we're still cool. Even though it gets heated, we're still cool. So, all right. And